Hello, everyone. It's our penultimate episode. I think I used that word right.
You did.
The one before the last one here on Power Spike, as there's only one more match left in the 2024 League of Legends esports season. So the quad box is back. Myself, Monty, Yamato, and Dom here to break down the semifinals and format changes that have come through and recap what has been a captivating 2024 Worlds, as well as, just the crowning of the best team in the world. They've been the best team the whole time. T1 never struggled
Nobody could
at
have doubted
all.
them. They've actually won every single LCK title. Did you know that?
No, well, the thing about T1 that you have to understand, that took me a while to understand, is that they always show up when it matters.
Oh, so we can define when it matters by when T1 wins, right? Because it must not matter when they don't win, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
But they always show up when it matters. So
okay. Where were they in Game 5 versus DRX? Did that not matter?
I haven't got to that part of the narrative yet, but I can.
Yamato's just like, I don't want to be involved in this.
No, this is just my personal hell, man.
Just lie.
No, this is just.
We left that last episode.
This is my personal hell, bro. When I saw, like, there was a comment that CC'd me for like a solid 30 minutes yesterday when I saw like a fan just arguing that Chovy cannot compete with Faker. Like, we're not even saying can he beat Faker. Like, he beat him 10 times in a row. He can't compete with Faker anymore. Maybe in a few years. I'll make it stop. I'm literally gonna have a heart attack if I fucking have to listen to this type of bullshit. He can't compete with Faker anymore. He's not even competition for Faker anymore. Bro, I don't know, bro. I watched so much LCK this year, and it's like, I've watched more LCK than I've ever watched before, pretty much. And it's just so weird to watch that competition for so long and then have like the best player over the course of the entire year at LCK just be like, just considered a piece of shit. Like, he can't compete with that. He's been like, I don't want him to be the best player in the world. I would prefer if somebody from LPL was the best player in the world. I'm down for Cream to be the best player in the world. I would be down for like OMG to win, like old OMG to win. But it's just like Chovy just performed so fucking well the entire year, and then he just loses these 4 games, and suddenly it's like he can't even compete. We're not even saying can he like beat these guys? Like, can he beat, like, is he still like the best player? It's like, no, he can't even compete with these guys. He's just a level lower than all these guys. It hurts my soul, bro. It hurts my soul.
Dom has now been one guide for like 48 straight hours.
Yeah, no, but I get one, dude. I got one guide by so many different people, bro. Like, the thing that fucking hurt me so much is like somebody responded to that comment. I didn't even respond. Somebody else responded to that comment and was like, "What about like all the times that he's beaten him recently?" And then the way that this guy said it, he said, "But guess who's on finals? Guess who's on finals?" I can stop on finals. I'm gonna kill myself. It's too fucked up, actually. But
you can't kill yourself, Dom, because that's what they want. You have to live. Living is your revenge.
Living is my revenge. Oh, man. That would actually be the biggest celebration. Oh, my God. Casual subreddit would go crazy if I killed myself. They would be like, thank God, it happened. The witch is dead. Like,
Jesus Christ.
Dom was cyberbullying all of us. We couldn't not click on his stream.
What's funny is like people will make it seem like I'm giving my opinions in some way where it's like influencing it. Like, people will seek out my content and then get mad at the opinions that I have afterwards. It's like, bro, I'm not going on other people's streams.
This is just the truth, Dom. The only reason why many people want to watch content is just to validate their own opinions. They don't want to be challenged anymore. This is why you go to Marvel movies, because you want the content to pander to you, not for you to actually have to intellectually engage with the content in any meaningful way, or to make you uncomfortable, for example, because actually being uncomfortable is now the gravest of crimes everywhere in the world, as we've known. If you are uncomfortable, you're being victimized. So, no, they don't. What they want to do, Dom, is they want to go to your stream, have their opinions validated. But instead, Dom, you challenge them with facts and analysis. And they don't like that. They don't like that.
How dare you? How dare you, Dom?
Yeah.
Why
It's
can't you
pretty much
just lie?
politics in the United States, right? The politics in the United States, you pick your side, whichever side you're on, and then you just seek out the content creator that like agrees with your side, and then you just consume all their content.
Bro,
like, that's pretty much how it works.
Solution, guys. We need Dom to we need to stage like him working in the T1 kitchen, like him just working, like doing some moves, giving some food to T1 fans, just a 15-minute shoot, and it would just promote that. and then everyone will just be won over.
There you go.
I'll be honest,
Repaired.
when I had
the image is repaired.
my first, like, I don't know, it depends on what type of food I was cooking. All I know is when I first had my run-in with the T1 fans, which was like the Blippo episode of Crackdown way long ago. The one thing they didn't like is like they were really going in on my like they thought I was Giga Spanish, like because of my last name. I guess they thought I was Giga Spanish, and they were just going in. They're like, "This is what happens when you eat that fucking disgusting poor people food." It was like, bro, I'm not like Hispanic. Like I'm not like Hispanic like that. I'm like by blood, but like that was something that they were like going in on. They were very upset that my last name was Rivera, bro. They were going in like it was like, yeah, I mean these people are just fucking stupid. Like of course, like somebody who like has this type of heritage is like a fucking retard. It was just like, okay, bro, like my bad. Like I was trying to like explain. I'm like, dude, I'm like that's not like I've never faced any type, like I don't even consider myself like a minority at all. Like I've never faced any type of like, you know, like oppression for being fucking like Hispanic heritage or anything. So like them saying a bunch of like Hispanic slurs at me doesn't do anything. It's not like I'm like, oh shit, like I'm so offended. It's like that just means that like I'm just like, why do you think I'm Spanish, bro? Like you just, because you don't know anything about me and you just saw my last name. That was like the first thing. And then all those comments, bro, like people were getting banned. There was like, maybe if you go back and you look at that original tweet where like I tweeted out about the one that I got brigaded by the T1 fans, there's like 40 deleted comments. There's so many people that just got like deleted for like their accounts got deleted for like death threat, like public death threats, like racism, like all that shit. Yeah, bro. It was actually crazy. There's insane amounts of deleted tweets on that one.
The whole first part of this conversation here reminds me that I asked people to tell us their favorite lies about us. And so I've got a couple that came up that are pretty good. The first one is a lie about the esports moment. My favorite esports moment was when Faker locked in Teemo mid in Worlds 2019 in the finals in 1v5 Chovy, Night Scout, Rookie, and Uzi. The Chinese LCK super team never stood a chance against his signature Demon King blast. I thought that was good. Monty made the call out about John Oliver, and a guy said the synchronized look up after the John Oliver comment. That one was pretty good. We were like, was that? No, Monty was just commenting on what he looked like. I thought that was fine. And then Yamato, this one was good. The lie is Yamato actually uses a voice changer, but to make his voice higher.
Nice.
They're all relatively healthy ones. Those were good ones. Everything else was just people were mad about you guys not giving any props to FlyQuest or any North American team.
I did.
We had the Guapo. I know it was, but you know, people. I don't think that was people saying the lie. I think that was people getting mad and then fans begging you to stop getting one guy dumb. Like the supporting homies being like, please stop getting one guy.
Wait, one guy by who? Because like literally, like I'm just like, where's the one guy? Because it just seems like there's a lot of guys.
All right,
so many
here.
guys.
Dom, I'm begging you. The last 2 years, you've been fighting ghosts. Every single time you say anything, please stop getting one guy to quote retweeted by randoms on Twitter. It's irrelevant. I'm so tired, bro. I'm literally begging you. Like, yeah, that's like a supportive homie, but also
those
very
people are
strong
fake.
dependent.
Those are the people that like just want you to like, they just want to be able to just say whatever they want about you and you not to be able to respond. Like that is what those people like end up wanting. Like, they just want
those are the
you
same
to
people, they just say, Dom, chill, Dom. Say, Yamato, chill. Why chill, Dom? Just focus on your thing. It's like, bro, this is my thing. This is our thing. Someone said some bullshit. We want to engage with the bullshit. That's the stream.
That's
fucking getting one game. I hate that fucking shit, bro.
I like this many guide. We'll keep that one, that term ready.
I mean, it's just always a lot of guys. It's like you see like just a million comments. I mean, the thing that is even crazier than that is like the concept of baiting, that everyone thinks everything is bait now for some reason. They're like, yeah, it's you're getting baited. Oh, they're baiting. It's like they made a fucking 600,000 viewed thread baiting you about like T1 leaking strats. No one actually thinks that Genji's coach like leaked T1 strats. It's like, okay, maybe it's a fucking coordinated bait. I'm just the target, bro. I'm getting baited by everyone. It's like, no, I just think there's a lot of stupid people in this community, and I think there's a lot of people that don't even care about like the League of Legends circuit. They don't even care about the game, but then there's like they just weigh in, right? Well, but like I just don't understand. If you don't watch League of Legends all year, why do you care about like who's the best player of the year or like who's the best team of the year? If you don't watch LCK, then why do you like care if people are saying that Chovy's better than Faker in LCK? Like I just don't understand this type of stuff.
Yeah, they just validation. Well, speaking of people weighing in on stuff that they don't know about, the formats for the seasons have dropped. LEC and LCK formats have dropped. I've known about this for a little while. Hey, I just want it to be known, if there is a Riot entity watching this show, I did not tell my coworkers that I knew this like weeks ago. No leaks here. Truly safe. Secrets are safe with dGon. Please.
The way you say it makes it seem like you're lying, bro. Like,
nah. I
mean, nobody leaked the format, so
wrong.
yeah, that's right. No one leaked the format, so secret safe with me. LCK puts out a unique format that I'm very excited about. It's Nemesis group versus group draft. So the idea is that you draft teams into your group that you think are better than the other team, and then it creates the fans of the league to have to support other teams. So you might have, I don't know, is it Hanwha Life Gen G together and then T1 and D Plus and KT together? And they have to root for each other against the other team so that your team can make it to playoffs easier, I suppose. So that one is going to be fearless into a elongated, quintuple round robin. It's like normal round robin, like a normal spring split, round 1 and 2, and then 3 through 5 are put into like a LPL inspired Legends group with the top 5 teams playing round robin against each other, and Rise group with the bottom 5 teams playing against each other, and then 8 teams will make it to playoffs. And all the preseason cup champion will go to the first international event. The rounds 1 and 2, the regular split kind of setup, will be going to MSI, and then we'll know our world's qualifiers from the final playoff bracket. No more regional qualifiers. It ends up being, I think, a total of 10 more competition days. It is about the same amount of matches, maybe 1 match less for the least amount played team, and you get, I think, about like 14 more matches if you play the most amount of matches possible, which is the 5th place team. I think the 7th place team also plays like 9 more matches. So overall, more matches if you're in the middle of the pack, less matches if you're at the front or the back.
It feels like every format is just trying to have less teams. It's like, fuck, we have like a couple dog shit teams in our. How do we get them to play less games? It's like the same thing that happened in LEC.
Except for LEC, which is now restoring the dog shit teams to more games for some reason. But we'll talk about that.
They saw the Reddit thread about Bin playing more games in 2 years than Larson in 5 years, and then they just were like, fuck, like we need to up it. We need more Larson for all the Larson fans out there.
Let's just start with some general things from both of these, and we can go into the LCK one first, and then we can outline the LEC format. Fearless draft coming into leagues. I believe almost all leagues are going to be using it for the first portion, generally that first international event qualifier. Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Do you like it? How do you feel about it, Yamato?
I like it because it makes it dynamic, right? I do think that the winter split already carries like a lot of new things, because usually there's like seasonal changes with the item changes. So usually we are already hit with like a lot of new things, and it might be like borderline overwhelming. But I do like the idea that Riot presented that they're experimenting, because maybe Fearless is not going to work out, and then maybe they think of a different format. Maybe there's some different way to make things more dynamic and exciting. So I'm all for it. On the topic of like the LCK format, what concerns me is how front-loaded the importance of the first initial round robins are, because it determines the future of the 2 groups that will be played for 3 more round robins, right? So there's a chance where a team underperforms in the beginning, and let's say like a T1 underperforms in spring. We all know Worlds only matters, but we might see like a team that you consider good might be in the lower group, so you just might see them face Nongshin 3 times in the Hell group. So there's a chance that things become very, very misbalanced, because the first part of spring in that case is a commitment to the whole year. So that part is a little bit scary, because there's
also
that
probably
going to
be
bullshit.
There's probably going to be something like 4 patches as well between because of MSI and the break. There's probably going to be like 4 patches between the spring part and the summer part. So the teams that qualify into those groups are going to be a lot of patches are going to pass before they actually hit the next phase of the tournament. So you might actually just get really weird results, because of the patch differences between when they qualify to the top group and the bottom group to when they actually play in those groups.
And also just the final detail is like usually what you see in traditional sports, because they have like long seasons, right? Is that everything is predetermined most of the time. And if you start off bad and you lose a bunch of series in the beginning, it might just determine everything. And then the only hope is that you get regular clashes between like the big teams, but maybe an abundance of that makes it less exciting in the end. If you have Gen G versus T1 play 3 best of 3s instead of the regular 2, I guess 4 in total, maybe there is like an abundance of it. But I think that I really like the cup system because I hate the PO1s that the LEC have. Fuck the LEC PO1s, but I'll pass the torch to somebody else.
Yeah. Dom, what do you make of a lot of these changes so far that the LCK have announced, this elongated one season?
Yeah, I mean, I in general, I liked the changes. I just think it's going to be more interesting to watch. There's going to be a lot of matches that matter early on. There's going to be a nice like 10-team playoff. The one criticism I had, and the thing that I didn't like about it, is I really don't like a system where you have 4 teams go to Worlds in a like 6-team gauntlet, because essentially what ends up happening in this playoffs is that if you are the higher seed and you lose the first best of 5, right? Like let's say it's because you have the initial best of 5s. Let's say you're the higher seed. You lose the first best of 5, you automatically qualify for Worlds because the lowest you can place is 4th. So you can lose essentially every best of 5 you play the entire year and still make Worlds. And that's something that I saw in LEC, like when Mad Lions made it without winning a best of 5. I didn't like that. I just don't like, in general, the idea that you can not win a BO5 all year and still qualify. I just feel like that's weird.
Yes. So when we get to the third portion of the season, rounds 3 through 5, where we have Legends and Rise, if you are first or second place in the Legends division, the best division, you are seeded. You get 2 seeds ahead, basically. Or yeah, you get seeded 2 ahead. That's basically how it works. So that's what Dom is explaining.
So if like let's say you're like the 3 seed, right? And the 2 seed in this scenario, and the 1 seed beats the 4 seed, then you're automatically going to Worlds as the 2 seed, even if you lose to the 3 seed, because you have the higher seed. So you'll go into the 3rd round, and then the 2nd round will be played between the team that has the lower seed and whoever wins the 5-6 matchup. So I think that's like a little weird. I just don't like formats where you can qualify to international events without winning a best of 5 at all. Like I just feel like you need to win best of 5s.
It's so interesting because it just, it feels like a reward for an elongated season. We saw this in the LCS when they experimented with this,
which was terrible, by the way. In the LCS, it was horrible because they had a 45 best of 1 season, and there was teams that were already like so doomed based off how they did in the first best of 1s that you could be like qualified for playoffs. Because you got to remember, it was an 8-team playoff as well in the LCS. You could be qualified for playoffs on like week 2 of summer, and summer was like 27 games or something. It's like you could be qualified week 2 already. Like that is like crazy, because it's like what are you even playing for at that point? And then there was teams that were eliminated so early on. There was that CLG team that was terrible, the one that had like Broxa and Poe Belter, the Bud Light beheading, that team.
Bud Light beheading.
The Bud Light beheading team. They were like eliminated for so long. It's just like watching them struggle. It was just so tough.
Was that was it Huhi, Stixay, Pobe?
I think Huhi was on 100 Thieves already at that time.
Oh, he had moved with FBI. So then who was that?
That was Wild Turtle. That was Wild Turtle. I think Smoothie. Wild Turtle, Smoothie, Broxa.
It was Finn, no? Finn?
It was Finn.
And Poe Belter. Yep.
Oh man, that was a year.
Yeah, I mean, it was just. I feel like we've seen the same roster made by GMs like 10 times over. It was like the Immortals roster with Soaz, Xmithy. Then we had this roster with CLG where it's just like Wild Turtle, Poe Belter, Broxa, Finn, like zero firepower, and then decent players. We had the Dignitas roster this year, the Heretics roster this year. I feel like we've seen the GMs put the same team together so many times, and it just never works out. And they're like, "What the fuck? How the fuck didn't it work out? Like we have no players that are mechanically excellent, but we're not good. I don't get it."
Monty, final weigh in here on the LCK before we move on over to the LEC.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, obviously, on formats. And look, I have concerns about Full Fearless as a format in general, because you have to remember that this, for the LCK Cup, the tentative title of this, is Full Fearless, which means that any champion that is played is going to be banned moving forward. So by the time you get to a possible 5th game in a best of 5, what this means, guys, is all 40 champions that have been played get banned, plus 5 bans per team. So you get up to 50 banned champions before, like, in the pick and ban phase. And my concern about this is, like, I do not know if it will ever play out this way, but my potential concern is that teams will use Full Fearless draft to basically sacrifice games to remove the best champions for an enemy team from the pool, and like pray they win, or do stupid shit like play 5 junglers just to like deny the enemy jungler. And I just don't think
it's a very good strategy, to be honest. I think it
would be surprising if teams didn't do it at some point.
I think that it's one of those things where people won't do it immediately because they view it a certain way, but as soon as one team does it, the dominoes will all fall and all the teams will start doing it. Because like,
God freaks, CV Max is gonna do it.
I like,
also
even though it was,
bro.
dude, even though it was like an amateur tournament, I played a Full Fearless draft in like the Dantes tournament,
right.
and
They did that to you, didn't they?
No, they didn't do it to us. Well, we should have done it to them, because they were like, they had very specific champions that they were really good on. And if you're playing versus a player like let's say you're a T1 and you're playing versus Genji and you're doing Full Fearless in a like in summer 2023, let's say this final was Full Fearless, you should sacrifice the first game and just play like all the AD mid champions. Just get all the AD mid champions out of the pool so Chovy can't play them, and then you have a much better shot. You just play fucking Smolder, Corki, Tristana, like you just get all the fucking like Yone. You take all those champions out, and then Faker is going to do much better in the next games after all those are removed. So I think it's one of those things where I wonder how they like is that something that is going to be illegal for teams? Like, how do they know if a team is sacrificing a game or not? Like, how do you even police a team doing that in Full Fearless? Because I do think that is like a very viable strategy, especially when you're like an underdog, and if a meta really doesn't suit you, then like, let's say this last meta where it was Corki Tristana all the time. In LPL, essentially the way it worked was like, one game you'd play Corki, the other guy would play Tristana, then you'd swap, and then the third game they would be banned on both sides, and then like one of the teams would ban Yone or something, and then there would be no AD mid laners because no one was playing Lucian, nobody was playing Zeri yet, when they were in the Fearless portion of the summer placements. So if you are bad at that meta, now you can just completely avoid the meta and just lose one game. And in a best of 5, honestly, it's like not even that bad. Also, I think it's one of those things where it doesn't like mentally hurt the players either. You don't lose the momentum in a best of 5. It's almost like annoying for the others. It's like, what the fuck? What is this team doing? I think it's going to be a really like good strategy going forward. Even though people see it as, oh, but you are losing a game. It's a worthy sacrifice to make a lot of the times.
Yeah, if you are an underdog, it's better to lose that one game than just to get shit stomped in a meta that doesn't suit you, or against a team that could be significantly better on you with certain like pocket picks that maybe you don't even really play. So I think that's my concern. Now, look, we're gonna see how this works. The first like international tournament is it's like a week-long tournament. This is going to be a fun little, just like LCS lock-in, just like Kespa Cup. This is going to be a fun little like start to the year. So I don't really have a lot of complaints right now, and I want to see how it plays out. But people should be aware that this will happen at some point. Like, somebody's going to try this for sure, because it's just something that people are going to try to do.
Just a strategy.
It's just a strategy that's obvious that people are going to try. I prefer Fearless games where it's partial Fearless, where you have to win on a champion for it to be banned. But honestly, the biggest issue for this, guys, is you are basically saying that we would rather have a bazillion picks than watch the best players in the world play their best champions, which to me is a bummer, because I don't like it when I can't see players play their signature picks. And for them to,
you must have hated this. You must have hated this Worlds for Gen G then. Like, you saw the fucking patch, like, oh my god, it was like, wait, so what is Chovy the best? Like, okay, Yone's like never gonna be played. Okay, Smolder is nerfed, Corki is fucking nerfed, Tristana, the whole fucking 80 carry systems is nerfed, the Doran's blade is nerfed. Like, what the fuck?
but I mean, like, it would suck. It would suck to not watch Bin play Jax for literally an entire playoffs. which could happen if you're playing all fearless, because the other team could just pick it the whole time, right? Or pick it the first time that it's available. So these are concerns that I have. It is also, and it must be said, this is a very deliberate shortcut, because the goal of Riot is to increase champion diversity, and they either cannot or will not balance the game at the professional level in order to accomplish that goal. So now what we are introducing is artificial means to accomplish that. So they either can't balance at the professional level or they won't. And so for me, that's a bummer, because I do not care what happens in Silver solo queue. Obviously, Riot does. I'm not saying as a business this is a good change. This is, the best thing that they should do. But for me, I would rather just see them balance around the professional level. That's what I would rather see, because then we could just have champion picks. And finally, on this front, we do get good champion diversity. Who is complaining about the quality of the games that we see towards the end of Worlds? Who is complaining about the picks that we see popping up, the surprise picks that we see popping up between two high-level teams in a best of 5? We do have good champion diversity in those games.
I do think that in Worlds, like the way that it ends up working is whatever the boring matchup is that we see most of summer, whether it's like Corki Azir, or whether it's like a bunch of Orianna, Smolder, Lucian, Zare, like whatever the boring stuff is, Riot always tries to nerf it intentionally right before Worlds, which is like one of the discussions that's been going on in the community is like, does T1 make patches that intentionally favor T1 at Worlds, or is it that, T1 is just not that good at the boring shit, so the patches end up, benefiting them at Worlds because they're not the team that plays a lot of Corki. They're not the team that plays a lot of Smolder, that type of stuff. So it's interesting.
So
final thing I wanted to add about the LCK topic and Fearless. It's like on my end, what's interesting is the practice method will be completely different. I think from a team side, like in terms of how you scrim and how you approach things, will be very different. And also the level of players we will see is also extremely different. And we're going to have such a damn headache when player narratives from the Fearless drafts is going to carry over and be a thing, but only for a short time, because obviously nothing matters besides Worlds. But the narratives that will come out of champions, like players playing bad, like 8 champs deep, like 10 champs deep, we're going to see some terrible gameplay. And there's an aspect that's interesting to me in terms of how the practice process will evolve, and maybe people find out things that might stick over time. But we are going to see players first time shit on stage, because it will be borderline impossible to prepare for every scenario. And whether you like that, I can understand the side of that looking goofy as fuck, but that's where we're heading with Fearless Drafted.
But also, it's also highly volatile, because this is going to be the first professional games that are played right after you get the big changes for the year. So it's like, it's going to be insane, the results from this, because it's not only the full Fearless and the depth of the champion pools and the first timing champions, it's going to be teams acclimating to whatever Riot's patching in for next year, the major changes to the game that always happen, and so it's going to be wild. It is, however, it's only like 6 weeks. Yep. And it's interesting in terms of experimentation. And I will say that even though I don't like things about this, if this is kind of the self-contained madness that starts the year, and it's kind of kooky and fun, and then we get into the real shit, and maybe, this actually forces teams, the hope is, by doing this, that you force teams to practice things that they wouldn't normally practice, and it kind of opens their minds so they use the versatility that they've gained for the rest of the year. If it does that, it will be cool. It will be cool.
I mean, I think it's also just that since it doesn't affect the rest of the year, you can be a little bit more crazy in terms of like what you're doing.
So that was the hope when
imagine having subs. Just subs.
Well,
imagine having subs. Game 3, all champions out, and some fucking random ass guy comes in. He's a Kled OTP or some shit, like he comes out and his champions are open, like who knows?
but that's my worry, that a requirement to be able to get through 5 bans, because say you put in that sub and they're like, yeah, screw that guy, we're banning, or 3 bans, we're banning 3 against this guy, so he's going on his 4th champion, and that's your sub. That's my worry about getting new talent, because at first I was like, cool, you can pull out like a 1 trick and get him on there, or open up like multiple different champions, but then it's like what Dom said, you could just tank the game and ban that one trick and see like, okay, let's see how good you are in your fourth champion. You know, like at first I was like, oh, it doesn't even lean into the rest of the season, so you have the ability to experiment, but then are you willing to put them down like, you know, on their fourth champ?
In general, I'm more supportive of tier 2 introducing Fearless, full Fearless, because I think it's good for up-and-coming player development, but I don't think it's necessary at the professional level. However, like I said, if this is just contained to the first part of the year, I think it can be fun, and I am open-minded about the effects it might have on the rest of the calendar. Do I want this at Worlds? Do I want this at MSI? Do I want this in playoffs, regional playoffs? Fuck no, I don't. But in this case, in this limited use, I think it's fine, and I am intrigued to see if it will actually open things up. As for the rest of the LCK season, I am bummed that we're getting back to double round robin once again, because that format actually sucks, and I am excited that they will then be moving into basically the LPL summer format, where we get the two groups where all of the games and the top 5 teams are bangers, because it is known, guys, in LCK, there are, at any given time, we are lucky in LCK if there are 4 good teams. So we don't want to watch, you know, basically any given week in LCK, there's probably like 20% of the matches that are actually interesting to watch. And this will make it just like LPL Summer, where basically LPL Summer, there was a banger match on every day of summer. It was great. And that'll be the same thing, I think, with LCK. So I am in support of that. The shitters can all beat each other up in the dumpster at the bottom, and that's fine. Maybe some of those matches will be entertaining. There's still going to be crossover. 3 of the teams from the lower group will have a chance to actually enter into playoffs. So overall, I think this is a big improvement for LCK in format. And I even the things that I'm cautious about, such as the full Fearless draft, I am interested to see them play out and monitor their effects.
The couple of things on that. We asked whatever. We asked if like what the scheduling would be like, and the idea is that you would have one of the Legends matches and one of the Rise matches every day. So like every day you're gonna get the 1st through 5th match, and you're gonna get 6 through 10. So there's no escaping it. You have to watch every day if you want to watch. It doesn't mean that it's always going to be one's first, one's second. They'll figure that part out. But the idea is that you would have one of those every day. And the other part is I'm 2 more. I'm bummed about the records and trying to carry over like what you know spring 2019 LCK was compared to now. Like that's going to be a little bit harder. I guess we can use number of matches up to that point, but it'll be a little different once we get to the summer split or the round robin 3 through 5. And then lastly,
rounds 3 for 5. They're not. Yeah.
Rounds 3 through 5. And then lastly, I'm just bummed that it's going to be very, very difficult to complete the LCK circle of suck when the bad teams are just playing the bad teams. There's not going to be a chance for my bros to take down KT and ruin their season. You know, like it's going to be.
I mean, it would be great if your bros were no longer in LCK and the league went to 8 teams.
Please,
that would be incredible.
I'm so against bro. Everyone is just like, man, bro is so fun. It's like they're not fun. Like most of the time, it's very hard to watch bro play. Like the games are just kind of sad.
Giga Chad. All right, let's
it's like Giga Chad, they got 0 kills and they're not doing anything. Nice. So Chad, bro, nice. It's like they're just getting
You don't enjoy Umti and TL? There's Umti with the bro energy. You don't enjoy his nocturne flying into the enemy team.
Yeah, he's got bro energy for sure, bro. Like it looks like Umti has never won a game before. Like he's always trying to figure out how can we lose this. Like I got to preserve my 40% career win rate.
Pacifist gameplay, Giga Chad. All right. Don't listen to them, bros. It's okay. For you all at home, what do you think about these changes with Fearless Draft? Let us know in the comments below as we turn over to the LEC, which also has made some changes, but not in the Winter Split. Winter Split is basically the same except Fearless Draft. So they start with the Fearless Draft.
Yes, Fearless Draft best of ones. Yeah.
Not in the best of ones portion. But after that, once they get to the playoff bracket, they'll get themselves the Fearless then. And then Spring Split was the regular round. It's the 7-week round robin, single round robin. 6 teams qualify for playoffs.
Yeah, it's
with the
best of
double
3
eliminator
single
bracket.
round robin in spring.
Yeah. So they are getting the best of 3s on in there as everyone has requested. And then for the summer split, they move to the draft portion, which unlike the LCK where you're rooting for your team, you're playing against the teams in your group. So it's a nemesis draft in your group. And then the top 4 squads will have the opportunity to make it to playoffs. Top 2 in each group will go to playoffs, and then 3 will play 3 of group 1, will play 4 of group 2, and vice versa to get those last 2 slots on in there. Yep. So that is the LEC format. They'll keep it 3 splits. They'll still have 3 LEC champions throughout the split instead of just 1. But a little bit more fearless there, and they get a bunch of different formats. So they did try a lot of different things. So how do you feel of this one, format guru Monty?
I think it's terrible. I think it's I actually have been a defender of the LEC format, not the fact that we had the season finals after the summer finals. That was terrible. But what I loved about LEC was that we had to watch only 3 weeks of the worst 2 teams in the league, and then they just went away, and we didn't have to deal with them anymore. And then we got GSL groups, best of 3, double elimination, 4-team groups. This was great. This was a great format because we're getting rid of the bottom teams as fast as we possibly can while still giving them a reasonable chance to compete. I think it has been incredibly overstated, the cause of best of ones, because it's not, people present it as though best of ones was the vast majority of LEC competition. It wasn't. It only was for literally the worst teams. And those teams, guys, they were not going to make it if those games were best of 3s. Nothing would have changed, right? And here's the thing about best of 1s versus best of 3s. I hear a lot of arguments from European fans. Well, we need those best of 3s because they're going to make our teams better. That's what we need to improve. Guys, you do realize that when Europe was doing the best it has ever done in the history of League of Legends, what were you guys playing? Oh, you were playing best of 1s? What was Asia playing? Oh, Korea's playing best of 3s? Oh, that's right, they were. Explain that one. If best of 3s are the magic medicine, the panacea that's going to cure all of Europe's competitive ills, I will tell you what the problem with Europe is that you guys aren't acknowledging. And all of you fucking KC stands out there and you Mad Lion stands refuse to admit the actual truth, which is your GMs suck at making teams. They suck at making teams. The main problem in Europe is that G2 is the only competent team, and you guys are out there standing for teams that cannot put rosters of players together. Guys, there is no amount of best of 3s that will make Frescowy good. There are no amount of best of 3s. 0. He could play an infinite number of best of 3s until the heat death of the universe, and he will not be good. Best of 3s are not the solution to the problem. Getting competent players in your team is the solution to the problem.
Look, all I'm saying is Frescowy was a rookie last year. We don't know how he's going to do in his sophomore year. All right. Like when you're a rookie, that means that you have a lot of room to improve because rookies magically get better year after year. And that's why every player just ends up being like a top player in the world, is they just improve year after year after year after year. And there's just a consistent upward trend. So for Frescowy, by the year of 2035, he'll be a top tier mid in the LEC.
And guys, if you're mad, if Carmine Corp fans, if you're mad and you're like, our team kept getting eliminated and all I got to watch was best of 1s, how about you go pick it up with the guy who signed Sakin these nuts, and put him in the mid lane of that team? Why don't you go get mad at that guy? Because he's the one who's sabotaging Europe.
Or his coach
sabotaging LEC.
Yep. It was Yamato. Yamato wanted Sakin. It was his number one. He was like,
I'd like to reply to a lot of the things that Monte brought up. I think a very, very key difference for me in terms of why this format is ass is the fact that you're playing back-to-back super weeks, which is very different from what it was in the past. In the past, you played 2 BO1s, and in terms of how much practice you get in a week, it really, really differentiates in terms of your approach to the season, because there's a lot of good teams that had bad starts that over time became better, shaped up before playoffs, Like even us, for example, 2022, we barely scraped by. If we lost one more game, we didn't make playoffs, but we also, went to the World Championship in Fnatic and we did well, right? I think the context is that you have super weeks. None of the teams like
and super weeks have always sucked, and I have always been against super weeks. But super weeks have also always existed, Yamato.
But how is that an argument for them? Because the comparison is
I'm not arguing for super weeks.
I do agree. I do agree that like best of threes is not going to solve all the issues. But I think there is a difference between playing 9 BO1s in the span of 3 weeks and now also with the life patch changing, and then you have to adapt to that in 2 days and then play, and then having, one bad weekend determining that split. I think that in itself is a fault of the format, because in my mind, what we are doing in winter, again, like I would much prefer the LCK Cup format than these BO1s, because in the end, it's like, I think it's important to try to foster an environment where all teams have an opportunity to improve, because trying to remove teams that are shit early, I think is a solution to a symptom, but not a solution to the problem. Like the fact that we have bottom feeders, like also it's like, oh guys, we have shitters, they're in the corner of that room. Let's try to find ways to get them out. That's I agree with that problem existing, but I think that's a symptom of something else. Because I don't disagree with the point that GMs suck.
Here's the thing, though. The 3-split system and getting those teams out quickly actually, I think, allows many of those teams to try and correct their problems, because they're not on some sort of grind where they're trying to, band-aid their mistakes from week to week. They have a few weeks to scrim and actually sit down and fix systemic issues. It gave them more time to actually replace players, which almost always needs to happen if you're one of the worst players in the league, because now you have 3 splits. You're not just replacing between, spring and summer and making those roster changes. So I do think, in the short term of like, oh shit, we got eliminated after 3 weeks, in that context, I agree with you, it's bad. But it also gives you more time to really sit down, fix the issues within your team without the pressure of having 3 best of ones against 3 different opponents in the next week. And also, like, we have to look at this as an entertainment product. I disagree with the fact. Here's another question for you guys. Why is it, do you think, that LCK and LPL are moving away from best of 3 round robins while LCS and LEC are moving into them? Why are they doing that?
Because
why are LCK and LPL? Because it's a bad entertainment product. And by the way, it's a bad. Don't use your appeal to authority, logical fallacy, or your appeal to antiquity about traditional sports. Those are bad formats too. Traditional sports are moving away from those formats. The NBA now has a mid-season tournament, guys, because leagues
no. It's called the Emirates Cup now. I got literally.
No, really?
Is it really?
Emirates
Cup NBA.
But
my God, it is. Whoa,
the Emirates NBA Cup. Yep.
Because on that point, Monty, like I like the Hell and the Heaven group. I think that's genius. Because you get volume of games. You get volume of games. Yep. You get to see the good teams and the shitters. I think that's a beautiful solution. But I think the winter split format, I think, is just complete garbage.
Do you think that LEC, anyone at LEC, had any idea what LPL had done this last year when they invented this format? Because how could you look at what happened in LPL summer and then come to the conclusion that what we desperately need, is 9 best of 3s of Rogue?
I mean, they probably just looked at, I would assume that the way they do it is they just looked at viewership and they're like, well, the viewership wasn't much higher of LPL summer, so it must not be a good format. Like, that's probably how they do their reasoning, right? Like, what else would they care about?
Competitive integrity. I
have to also say this. LEC has a very healthy tier 2 ecosystem, right, with the ERLs. Why is it that we are obsessed with developing players on the worst teams within the LEC when we have an entire other ecosystem to develop the players?
I think it's like
I can say on the topic of because you mentioned KC eventually moved on from players that did dominate the EMA Masters dominated LFL, right? They like if you look at who was in the finals of that EMEA Masters, it was the Mad Lions roster pretty much with Elioya, and then just the KC, right? It's like the players that won moved over, and at some point it's like some players gotta have a show because the stimulus and everything that you deal with in Berlin and playing in the LEC is very, very different, and that's like fucking jumping into cold water because a lot of these players that play in the second tier systems, they play from home, they play in very comfortable gaming houses, they play in the same location. It's not the same kind of interaction. Some players deal with that well, some players deal with that worse. Like on the KC front, they did make the changes. They gave chances for players that did well in LFL and EMEA Masters, and then they moved on, right, when, it made sense. But an issue there was as well that the split system that happened in EU, because they moved to 3 split systems first, their splits weren't finished in the second tier system. This was also like a dumbass move where, we want to make changes between winter, and then it's like, these guys are playing LFL playoffs now, they're playing LVP playoffs, so what the fuck are we doing here, This was also like a fucking mind-blowing move because there was no synergy there at all. Like no synergy at all in terms of how these things function together. And I think that's also like a big fucking problem.
Yeah, because I mean, if we took KC, let's say we took the KC project from last year and fit it into this format, when would you have moved on from Saken? Like,
yeah, Yamato, when would you have moved on from Saken?
Like when we figured that out early, but you couldn't have.
I can say what my plan was, right? My plan was to continue into spring, because in my mind, I think the approach to winter was terrible. Because that's another issue with how GMs are disconnected from what the format is. Because the truth was, I always made the claim, winter split doesn't matter. Only how we use our time matters. Because in the end, no one gave a fuck about the results of winter. But aesthetically, in terms of the reaction, wow, we're in trouble. No, we just didn't practice in fucking December, November, because there was a Red Bull event. And then the split started and we had a lot of shit to deal with. So it's like, we had 1 month of time moving into spring. There was like, a certain element of, we have time to repair things. But everything is just results. Oh, this guy played shit. Oh, it's done. Move away, run away, bench the coach. That's just because GMs don't look at the fucking format in the right way either. Yeah.
All right. Well, I just wanted to throw that one out there as it was a little unique. But the move away from championship points, no more championship points, no end of the year championship. Everything will be decided by the summer split playoffs. It seems.
All right. Sounds all right.
Pull more people in there. Yeah, like you want the teams that are hot going in, or hot at the end of the season, to be the ones going over to Worlds. And you have an opportunity to do that. Even in the LCK format, when it's one big season, spring and summer, what is now spring and summer, or what used to be spring and summer, you still have that opportunity once you get to the playoffs, unless you're the first or second seed. You kind of earn that pretty much. So cool to see the LEC move towards that and figure that one out.
I want to hear Dom's take. Are you excited about more round robin best of threes? Because the problem with this is people will be like, I understand your perspective, Yamato, about it being good for the players. I just think it's bad for viewers. I think that nobody's going to give a shit about literally 9 Giant X best of threes.
For sure. I mean, for me, the reason why I like it more is as somebody who's not planning on viewing, if I had to view every single match of LEC, I would fucking hate this shit, because this would just be way more best of threes of teams that I hate.
Yes.
And for me, there was so many days. I think the biggest problem for LEC this year was there was so many days where there was all the top teams playing all the bottom teams, where it's there's just 4 or 5 matches where it's okay, you have Giant X playing versus fucking Fnatic, and then you have Rogue playing against fucking BDS, and then you had SK, who was dominating the regular season, playing against Heretics, and then you have another fucking one of G2 playing against KC. You just had these really imbalanced matchups. And now, as somebody who's not planning to watch every single day, if I do watch, I'd rather just be able to keep up with the league by watching a few best of threes a week, instead of having to care about a best of 3 between Rogue. A Rogue and Giant X best of 3 is going to take 7 hours to play 3 games with how fucking bad these teams are. This series will never end. How can we sit there and spend time watching that. And they don't have they don't do anything for the fucking league. We'll see if these teams actually put together competent rosters.
This is why
God,
it was a good
hard.
format to get rid of them as fast as possible so that we didn't have to watch a 7-hour best of 3 between these two teams in the losers bracket of the 8-team phase.
Benevolent Yamato says no.
No, my biggest hope, like I was saying this to Dom all the time, my biggest hope coming into this year is that we reduce it to 8 teams. That would have been great. Phenomenal. That would have been the best. I think G2, Mad, like KC, Fnatic is sitting there and hoping, is like, look at these fucking losers. They're trying to sell their spot. They don't have a roster. Like, just fucking get them out. You know, just fuck off already, you know? It's just parasites, you know?
And I think that was one of the most shocking things about me moving to LCK was that every single team had a fan base, right? They would always sell out their side of the stadium. You had diehard fans of, I don't know, Nongshim, of Jiwoo. It was like, really? You love, Din Din? That's your guy? And it is. And you have fans of all 10 orgs, and if LEC is trying to do that through the nationality model, or they're trying to promote that this year by having, like those matches matter to those fans, that's great. But it just historically hasn't proved to be true. LCS tried this. And how do you get more fans of Noah Winston's baby child Immortals? You couldn't get, you tried to sign the most winningest jungler in North American history, and that didn't really move the needle.
I mean, because he had no fans. I mean, they didn't go for players that actually like were popular or had fan bases. It's not like Smithy was always the guy that like wouldn't play the game at all. He wouldn't stream. He wouldn't create content. Like I feel like the way that they approach like making content and making people fans is so lazy. It's like, bro, I put more effort into my own fucking brand and what I do than their whole organization put into their brand. Like, how is that fucking possible? Like, how is it possible that you can't sign a few people that are dedicating their life? Because that's what it needs. You just need a couple people that are dedicating their lives. How are we going to fucking make this shit work? That have some ability to do it. Like, you have to like have some basis where it's like, okay, we understand how this shit works. There's none of that, bro. Like Ruddy Esports and Don Jake has made more of a brand than these LCS teams. And it's like, and he is just bald, extremely short, and just not knowledgeable about the game at all. So it's like there's definitely there are definitely things that can be done. It's just people are not willing to do them.
Yeah. And also I think the counter argument can't be like from the fans, lol, just don't watch the best of 3s you don't want to watch. Because it's like, no, that means that you are making, that means you are making a shit product and you are serving it to people and just understanding that it's shit that nobody's going to watch. That is not good for the health of LEC. And like, I get Dom's perspective about this from a coach's perspective, from the team perspective. I think best of ones are shit. I think super weeks are shit. I think super weeks with best of ones is shit on top of shit with shit sandwiched in the middle. Okay? I hate that. But I also don't need to see a bunch of really terrible, like more terrible games. And that is basically the percentage of broadcast games in LEC that are just bad is going up, and the percentage games that are good is going down. And that's just true, guys. That's just true. And you can't just say, well, I hope the best of 3s will improve the team so that isn't true in the future. Because the GMing is the key issue here. The lack of competition is the key issue for G2. The fact that Humanoid is in this fucking multi-year Fnatic contract where he clearly doesn't give a shit, and they can't actually get good players out of bad rosters. Like, the talent is really weirdly allocated. So until somebody steps up to challenge G2, and I know Papa Smithy said, I hope LCS doesn't go back on best of 3s because it was a key part of our winning. And I think best of 3s are really core to the way. I don't think any League of Legends game should ever be played in a best of 1. I think we have shown over many years now that the way to play this game is in best of 3 or best of 5s. That's how it should be played. That's where the depth is. That's where the experience of transitioning from one strategy to the next over a match comes out. It prepares you the best for international competition. But I would argue that the single thing that was best about FlyQuest's improvement. What was best for them was just the existence of teams that were other teams that were good in their league, like Team Liquid. That was the most important part. LEC is a one-team region.
And G2 had to play against BDS and Fnatic, like the most, like just teams that you could tell were super dysfunctional and were breaking up at the end of the year. I feel like that was the biggest problem with LEC is just G2's competition. It's like, even though they were playing bad, it's like, it's so bad for them that they were playing bad and they still won. Like, I really hate that when you're playing bad, you still win. I don't know. Like, there was just no one ready to rise up. So, I mean,
anyway,
I think
I think it's good for teams, like you say, but I don't think that the sacrifice for the actual entertainment of the product is worth this price.
I guess the big selling point, right, is that they want to do events, right? They want to go to the KC Arena. I think they want to do an event in Madrid too, which I think there's an element there that is cool, right?
I think that's the biggest part for sure, because the thing is, like, you can't do that with a best of one. You can't like, you need to have best of threes between, like, for example, Mad Lions KC. You put one of those best of threes in Madrid, you put the other one in Paris, and you've got some shows. Like, you've got some fucking hype during the regular season. And it doesn't matter if, like, the other one is fucking Giant X versus Rogue. And if they're playing, like, a best of three in that situation, then you can, like, do a couple of them in an event, and it feels like it's a worthwhile investment. Whereas with the other format, it would be impossible to schedule because you don't even know if KC is going to make the fucking best of three stage.
Yeah.
Like, with the others, like, they could just they could just go out bottom two like they did in the first two splits, and then you just don't even get your KC event. So it's like you can't even schedule these things.
And I do think homestands are good for teams, by the way. I do think that should be done more. I totally agree with that.
And that's what I was going to say. I was taking inspiration from the T1 homestand. This was the only team that did a homestand this year. Like, we didn't have like a Gen G homestand or a Hanwha Life homestand, but T1 sold out the Goyang Arena in like instant and had a little section for the KT fans, which was very nice. And then they lost their homestand. Yeah.
Nice.
Just great.
It didn't matter. Like, I mean,
it didn't
why
matter.
would they care?
Who cares?
Why would they care about the
that loss?
It's like a regular season match. It doesn't matter.
You
And then, like, playoffs. I mean,
I don't mind seeing Deft happy a little bit. It's fine. He's not going to make worlds.
Does regionals really matter either? Like, I mean, if you're third or fourth seed, you're pretty much in the same pool from LCK, right? So, like, do you even care about, like, regionals when you lose to Dom 1 in 5 games?
Yeah. I mean,
think we should just give T1 a guaranteed spot at Worlds every year, like this roster.
The thing is, we know they always perform, right? So then they should just, like, we should just talk about them all year as if that they're always in Worlds form.
That's right. Tuna Too Good says nothing matters. Life is pointless. Yep.
Imagine
T1
imagine you try to reverse engineer that logic, right? Let's see if we did the opposite, right? And we took the reverse and we're like, okay, so then T1 never performs in LCK. They never win LCK. We take that approach and then we just start discrediting T1 when they're playing well in LCK, saying that, oh, they never win LCK anyway. Like, of course they'll, like, crash and burn. Let's take that approach and see how T1 fans like it. I'm down.
I think a very crucial detail is you see in the viewership what matters and what doesn't. So when T1 is winning, the viewership is very high, and when they are not, the viewership is lower because it's not important. It's just not important.
Makes sense to me. Makes sense to me.
You know, I've actually never tracked when T1's winning or losing. I just track when T1's playing when they're not.
T1 is always at the top of viewership, no matter what. Like, it's just it is what it is. I want to bring this topic up. I said it before we went live, but one thing that was interesting, a topic that was discussed in the community, is like you could see the patches going in T1's favor, like 14, 17, 14, 18. There was 2 T1 patches, and everyone was like I made the meme like 2 months ago where it's like, sir, a second T1 patch has hit the servers, you know, like that one, you know, like we had Forrest talk about it. LS, who's obviously a huge fan of T1, was saying that I don't even know if it's a conspiracy theory at this point. Like, it's so important to the viewership of League of Legends that T1 does well at Worlds. Does Riot actually intentionally push the game in a T1 direction, hoping that T1 does well? What do you guys think?
No way. There's no way. I'll let you guys get it, but there's no way.
I think that the thing is that Riot wanted to move away from Riot doesn't like when people are playing the game at the professional level in a way that Riot does not deem acceptable. And it is not acceptable to have 80 carries in the mid lane. And it is certainly heresy to execute lane swaps, right? That is number one heresy, according to Riot. They will institute a million fucking invisible mechanics into the game in their desperate quest to stop the evil lane swap so that it looks exactly the way that solo queue players play the game, right? Yeah. And so I think the issue is that a lot of this summer was a meta that was really quite strange by historical standards. And I think the most important thing to Riot is that when Worlds comes around and they have the most eyeballs on the game, that the game looks as similar to what they perceive to be the standard, like, engage / supportive jungler plus mage mid laner plus AD carry plus tank or bruiser top. That's what they want to see.
You would think that, right? But then, like, in terms of like supports, like, you know, supporting was all about like Leona the entire time, and that's always been the role of support, right? Like, you wanted like engaged supports. I feel like that's been like the most common identity. We've had times where it's range supports, whatever, but throughout League of Legends history, it's generally been some form of like engaged support, being good. Leona Nautilus, I mean Thresh when it was strong, like, etc. And it's like they nerf Leona, and when you go and you look at the patch, it is almost like, it's almost impressive if it all ended up happening by luck. You know, like, that would be fucking crazy. It's like all the 80 mids got nerfed. Like, pretty much all the 80 mids, the 80 systems got nerfed. Doran's Blade got nerfed.
I think Joe Marsh is just slipping $100 bills into Freak's pockets.
No.
Absorb Life got nerfed.
dGon's like, no, not the conspiracy theories.
No.
The AP junglers got nerfed. Leona got nerfed. Ziggs got nerfed, which is something that T1 never wanted, but they never looked good when like Guma was playing Ziggs. Like, he had to play it, but that was not a T1 champion either. Like, I think that it's just that T1 kind of plays the game in like a fun way, and Riot always tries to make Worlds like fun, and that's kind of like that is what they're pushing the game towards. But it is kind of crazy that we had like Corki literally the entire year. We had him the entire year in spring, and then it just got like reworked, and then we had him the entire year in summer, and then they just killed him right before the patch when there's a 47% win rate Corki on.
They did nerf Azir. They did nerf Azir, which does hurt Faker.
They buffed it before they nerfed it.
Yeah,
to be honest.
They're like, oh, too much. It's too obvious. It's too obvious.
They saw him not play so well. He didn't play so well on it in the playoffs, honestly. No, but just to give my 2 cents, they did try to. It was funny because they did try to nerf Corki. They changed fleet footwork. They tried to like nerf them, because I think Riot's approach is that they are doing it incrementally because they want to not remove things out of the meta completely. So it's like Corki was getting nerfs, and with his nerfs he just got stronger because people were just, this champ is OP, I'm just gonna lock it in. I think incrementally they try to change. For me, I do think it's quite coincidental. It has to be, right? I don't know if there's like metrics that Riot view like in terms of what champions are like interesting to look at, because maybe there's like some data they have available that is coinciding with that. Maybe there's like changes coming into World Championship where they know that they don't want to, like, they want to remove themselves from the staleness, because, for example, last year at Worlds, mid lane meta was so fucking boring. Like, we saw 3 champions being played, Azir, Orianna every game, sometimes some Nico, right, and sometimes some Akali, but it was very, very boring in comparison to the previous years. Like, when everyone sees, like, Akali, Sylas, Ahri, like, everyone gets gassed up, like the 2022 one. Yep. So maybe there's some metrics and data that they are following in terms of like interest, because I can understand from the standpoint of trying to nerf these things the entire year and be like, fucking hell, these guys are still fucking playing it. Let's fucking shoot it in the head, you know? Like, I can understand from that point of view that something had to give, because the game was relatively the same for just so long.
I think
I'm not buying the conspiracy.
Yeah, look, I also think, like, you know, we kind of knew that Yone was going to be one of, if not the most important picks coming into this, and Faker's Yone was like pretty terrible. But I do think in general there is probably truth to the fact that to Yamato's point, like, they are trying very much to return they're trying to create specific metas for Worlds. And they are, because the logical thing from a competitive standpoint is to literally change very little from
Almost
summer
nothing.
playoffs into Worlds, because you want the teams who qualified into Worlds to be good at Worlds, right? The thing to do with competitive integrity is to make very, very minor balance changes between summer playoffs and the start of Worlds. Now, they don't do that. They go fucking nuts every year. They change the entire meta. It makes no sense because the teams that were good when they qualified for Worlds are not the same teams you're seeing at Worlds. And sometimes maybe it would be better to see a different team at Worlds than the ones that are there for that meta. So it's a big problem. But the reason why Riot does this is because they want to show off a very specific thing at the World Championship, which is an exciting / normal meta for players. And it is deliberate.
I don't normally get one guide, but I'm getting one guide because it's annoying because they're making a point to I'm on their side. I don't think this is a T1 patch. I just think it was kind of like what Yamato said. We're changing some things, but then the way they used it, this guy says, I don't get the T1 patch. The champs are Ari, Silas, Yone, and Syndra that are getting played. These are Knight and Chovy champs. That's not even true. What champion did Faker make his skin? And that we just know is a fucking playmaker. It's Ari. And it's Silas.
I mean,
those are two champs. I'll give you
and also Ori's still
I think
fine,
Showmaker
by the way.
and Knight, right?
Ori's
and Oriana's still fine. Yone was.
I wanted to add to because I also think like looking at what all the other teams are playing, melee supports that Korea is not good on is things that people still play. Like they're just enforcing, playing Pyke, Bard. Sure, they got nerfed, but they were also overplayed. So it's like they are becoming outliers in their own way. And I think probably from T1's perspective, I do think that this is a team that does well with like the longer tournaments because Worlds is practically 2 months, a little bit longer, right, in terms of prep time and so forth. So I do think that the T1 probably have a very specific skill set in the fact that they've been together for so long, and also that they get to adjust to the patch because I don't necessarily associate the champions that they are playing right now, it's like as their like number one champs, because in the end it's like Kaiser's strong, Gumayushi doesn't like to play it, Ezreal's being played. Like they do it their own way, and them executing that, I don't think it's tied to necessarily the patch. Sure, you can argue for the Varus and so forth, but I do think that there is a way of them enforcing what they do because they are good and not necessarily because of the patch, because nobody else does it, right?
It becomes easier to enforce that when they just nerf all the stuff that is good. Like when they nerf like all the stuff that is being played, then the second tier stuff comes up. It's not like, oh, they buffed Ari massively. It's just that they nerfed all the champions that were literally beating Ari before. Like in previous patches, right? If you just dropped in playoffs for LCK, if you just dropped like a B1 Smolder and they tried to play Ari into it, it's like the fucking Ari is losing lane to the Smolder. Like pretty hard too. Like it's not like an okay thing. It's like the fucking guy is taking grasp and he is just going to be power farming. He's just fucking harassing you with W's, just walking up level 1, queuing you. I mean, we had fucking Smolder solo killing people level 1 in like the in the LCS. It becomes so fucking like annoying to see how strong that champion was, and they nerfed the early game substantially. So for me, it's like I don't actually think it's necessarily a T1 patch, but I do think that they massively benefited from it, and it's the reason why I had them like top 4 before the tournament. I still thought that they like pre-tournament, I thought that they would lose to Gen G, but then before they played Gen G, I put the bet on T1. I was like, nah, they're gonna fucking win this shit. I can feel the aura.
Yeah, a conspiracy I might buy more than anything is the patch was, in my mind, coming into the tournament, I thought it was very catered to Bilibili, bro. I thought Bilibili is going to have a fucking field day. You know, they have Shun and Wei with AD junglers. I thought they're going to fucking pop off. Like Knight in a meta where a lot of things can be played. I just see him as a very diverse player, and I thought that Chovy was the guy who was getting nerfed coming into Worlds, right? Because I think he likes to play like... Yeah. He has the repetition. He's a repetition guy, you know? Well, Knight has played 12 champions at this Worlds. You know, he has the Galio, the Ari, he can play the Nico, he can play the Mages. I think he is the one who has like the wider spread. I thought it was a Bilibili patch. I thought it was an LPL conspiracy.
I thought it was BLG T1, bro. I thought BLG T1 were like both going to do really well after I saw the changes. That was my... But I just thought the T1 was like a lot worse than BLG coming in. So I had T1 moving from being like, they were the worst team coming in from LCK. I had them moving up from there to being like top 4 in the tournament. And I had BLG like winning over Gen G in my mind.
So you had BLG, Gen G,
Hanwha
T1, Hanwha Life T1. Okay. You had
Hanwha Life T1.
Again, see, remember, chat. This is the LPL Glazer. This is the LPL Glazer. He had 3 of the
matter,
LCK
bro.
teams at the top. Nope, doesn't matter. Let's just
Doesn't
lie.
matter. It
All right.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you say. Like before the event, I said the T1 would be good on this patch,
You
and
did.
I've like and I made a prediction. I even I said it before. I tried to AOE it. I went on Cadrill's stream. I gave my take. Like it was clipped. It went on the top of Reddit, and then afterwards, like when T1 does well at the tournament, they're like, and this is why you're a fraud analyst, because someone like you could never see this coming. It's like, no, I have all the receipts, but it just doesn't matter, bro. Like it's better to just lie.
Perfect, man. Well, perfect
I said
segue.
T1 was going to be shit at this tournament. Can't believe they got it together.
Almost perfect segue. Perfect segue into our first structured segment of the day. Now that we're done talking about the LEC and LCK formats plus the T1 patch. Let us know if you think the T1 patch is real or not. I firmly disagree, but it did benefit them, and it just happened to happen the last several years. But I think it's a coincidence. Let's get into.
It happened a couple times in a row. Yeah, it's fine.
let's head into our first segment of the day. It is Fraud Alert. Since you were speaking about being a fraud yourself, you might know a thing or two about this guy since you already weighed in on it. Never good, always chokes. Yes, we are talking about probably the best mid laner in the world, second best mid laner in the world. Well, it was before he lost again. Talking Chovy in this week's Fraud Alert. All right, guys. I looked up. Let me rephrase this. I was watching Cadrill's stream, a highlight of Cadrill's stream, where he was talking about, hey, there's only so much narrative you can push for Chovy and the next great group of people if Faker and T1 just keep winning, right? You keep saying he's due for the next he's due for the next Worlds. He wins the international event.
He's consistently lost to Chovy over the last that. I don't know why that's so hard to get through people's minds. Like he has consistently lost to Chovy for years at this point.
Years with an S, which is true.
Yes.
But still, it feels difficult to get those narratives out. And now Chovy, yet again, with a golden opportunity, falls short.
They didn't face off against each other in the playoffs in either of the last 2 Worlds, either, where T1 made the finals.
That was the whole thing. It was, Faker has never beat Chovy in Worlds, and he loses in LCK, so he has it easier.
Did win at
MSI. They did play a best of 1, and they beat them. Genji beat them in the BO1 last year, and that made them throw all of their prep out the window because they played like Arasa Kaiser. So Genji won T1 Worlds. Nah, I'm kidding.
But yeah, so Chovy falling short here, and they just... Chovy and the rest of Gen G just did not look like on the same page as T1. You can look down, up and down that roster. You can look up and down the roster of their opponents and say, okay, Keria super outperformed. Gumayushi continued to perform in his, a great form as he's had. But if you're the superstar player, you're the carry, you're going to get a lot of the eyes and a lot of criticism. So, Monty, let's start with you. How do you rate Chovy's performance in that last finals, and then, compared to, and where do you rate this in terms of fraudulency compared to what was the expectation?
Well, obviously the expectation for Gen G was that they win Worlds, right? That's the expectation going in. T1 is a team that was literally 1 game away against fucking Pioshik KT from getting eliminated and not even attending the World Championship, right? So clearly, like, you do not expect Gen G to lose to T1. I think that would be completely unreasonable, even though they didn't actually play because Hanwha beat T1 both times in the summer playoffs. They weren't able to make the finals. And so we had a new final that we hadn't seen before, which was exciting.
I bet on T1. I thought T1 was actually, but by the time that it got to the match, like during the week, I thought it was Gen G. And then by the time it got to the match, I'm like, wait, isn't T1 just going to win? So I actually did bet on T1. I just thought they would win.
That's fair. but I'm talking about from the perspective of prior to the tournament. Now, as we're coming into this, Dom touched on this last week that, he thought Chovy's performance was not super good against FlyQuest, which I don't think anybody would argue that this was the level of performance that we had wanted to see from him. And I do think that there have been years, particularly 2022, where I felt that Chovy really was underperforming what he did domestically. 2023, I don't think it was his fault last year at all. And I don't think it was really his fault this year that they were losing. But I think what people get hung up on, and I think is a valid criticism, to be clear, is that Chovy in important games, particularly at the World Championship, Chovy lacks the killer instinct, right? He doesn't step up and put the game away. And Faker does that. Like, I think it is fair to say that Faker is the most clutch player of all time. We saw that at last Worlds in a losing game with his, Azir shuffling ruler in the mid lane in what was the de facto.
We saw it in game 4 where he walked up to Keen and just won them the fight. Because he got I saw what Peter Dunn said. It's because he got Keen to waste his W killing Faker, and then Jax had access to the backline.
Oh, give him a break. He just had a baby. He hasn't slept. He's out of his mind. I will tell you.
I'm just saying it was a really bad play from Keen. Like solo killing, like essentially just killing the enemy mid laner.
She was great.
No, he played it bad.
Okay.
Because if you auto win your team the fight, and then your AD carry walks up to a Skarner and gets dry ulted, no flash, nothing, that you're not CC'd, walks up into Skarner's ult range and just gets ulted, which has a channel that you can see, and you get hit, the AD carry is not brain dead and then flamed. The top laner or the jungler, whoever engaged, it was like, is this a bad engage from him?
It's even worse because Owner actually had previously flashed out of that fight, meaning that FaZe actually had to walk further in order to get hit.
I mean, he had flash up and everything, but it's fine, bro. Honestly, killing the Ahri there is really bad, actually.
And also, I think, what is the narrative of that game if Gen.G wins after catching Faker out right there, right? What's the narrative?
They should win. By the way, T1 had thrown that game. When the double AD carry comp gets late game and you have like a Pyke on your team that is relatively useless, like that game is thrown at that point. Like once they lose the Drake fight and then they lose Baron, like the game is now thrown.
So anyway, back to Chovy. Like, I do think that people's complaints about Chovy are that he is the guy who isn't going to make the amazing play that wins you the game, that causes you to come from behind. Partially because it's true, he does that less at Worlds, and I can't answer the reason why that is. His form at this Worlds definitely was not as good as we've seen him for the rest of the year. Now, part of that might be that his champion pool has changed dramatically. Part of it might be that, frankly, I didn't feel like Chovy had many surprises in terms of his picks in store for us. And maybe Chovy needs to have more of an ego, because he has famously said at this Worlds about Smolder that it's not about it being fun to play that champion. It's about it being the best for his team. Right. And so maybe Chovy is too selfless in the kind of ways that he plays with his team at some points in time. And maybe he's not pressing certain advantages that he has quite enough. Right. These are all things we could discuss. So I do think that in terms of his fraudulency, I don't like, he was obviously super hyped up here, but I also don't think he's like the reason that they were losing games, really.
I mean, Gen.G is a team that perfects things over time in a patch. Like, they're the team where if you played this game on the same patch for 5 months, they would just start smoking everyone, because they have the best fundamentals when it comes to like team fundamentals, vision control, like understanding how to team fight. They have the best fundamentals out of any team in the world. You have to understand that at Worlds, what the players are going through, you can't play fucking solo queue, because solo queue is like 3 patches in the future. I mean, you could play it, but you have to play it and you have to take everything with a grain of salt. You can't like get the same reps in, because you're playing literally on 14-21. They're playing 14-18 at Worlds right now. Your scrim partners are non-existent. Who the fuck do you scrim? You scrim random pickup teams for Europe at this point. So like, you're not going to get like that quality practice where you're going to be able to take a lot and you're going to be able to work on the stuff that you're really good at. You play less of the game because you're traveling from location to location. There's more media days because you have teasers before everything. So it's a situation where like, this is just not a tournament that's conducive to playing the best possible League of Legends. I think at Worlds, generally, we see a lower level of League of Legends than what we see throughout the year. When you see like LCK playoffs
or an MSI, because when you have the double elimination bracket, there more teams stick around longer to practice. Guys, there's nobody to practice against for BLG or T1 this week. There's nobody.
Yep. It's just like, it's just vibes, right? It's like the team that vibes as well. And also, like, T1 does pretty well on low practice. We saw they were getting DDoS before. Like, they're a team that's had to deal with low practice before. Like, it's actually...
It was genius. It was probably the T1 fans DDoSing T1 to prepare them for Worlds.
Yes, it's actually genius.
Amazing.
Holy fuck. I realized
it was... Joe Marsh was DDoSing them the whole time.
One thing I hate about the criticism... One thing I hate about the criticism of Gen G is that throughout the entire year, the thing that they were super good at.
Use your brains, guys. Anyway,
the things that they're super good at throughout the whole year for Gen G is they're really good at funneling gold into Chovy on side lane and taking no fights on bad timers for him, allowing him to get this lead. And then when you're only down like 1-2K and your mid laner's ahead, you have a point of strength within the game, and then you put the game away in team fights. And at this World Championship, you see Lehens is just getting caught nonstop. The games are not stable at all. And then when Chovy goes side lane now, people are like, oh, but he's always in side lane. Like, look at like how much Faker was doing as opposed to Chovy when Faker was playing the pick. It's like, because that is how Gen G played and like won the whole year. That is why they dominated everyone pretty much for the entire year, is because they were side laning well with Chovy and they were getting themselves in these situations where they're not like 6K gold behind like they were in that game 3. That never was happening during the year. That like you have a handful of games the entire year where you're losing that much gold on the map. Game 4, they got stomped early game before T1 threw at that Drake. They're down like 5-6K gold. Lehens is like 0.5, 0.6. Like, when do you see them die that much to random bullshit? Gen G is the team that embodies that discipline. And at Worlds, when you're not practicing as much, I feel like it's harder to be disciplined because you're just not in that like really good form. So I don't think that the format is conducive to a team like Gen G doing well. It's conducive to much better, like much scrappier teams like BLG and T1 that just kind of want to fight. If you look at a lot of the decisions that are being made, normally in a game, you cannot save your TP at some of the times Faker is saving TP. Like, Faker is giving like 20 CS to save his TP because he's like, I'm just going to fucking TP into a fight. We're just going to make a play. Whereas normally it's like, no, you can't. Like, if you don't TP there, you're just going to be so far behind. You're not going to be able to play the game. And if you look at how T1 is fighting, like T1 has so much confidence. When I was watching the T1 matches, when I was VOD reviewing it, in T1's good plays and their bad plays, they have way more confidence than Gen G. You can just tell by like when T1 was even walking up to grub fights that they were losing, they are like walking into the enemy, standing on vision, positioning, looking for angles. Like, owner is like queuing onto the Leona, trying to start the fucking fight and just like dying instantly. Like, they're more confident even in their bad plays than Gen G was in their good plays. And I feel like Gen G is a team that doesn't do well with like weird circumstances. Like, they want things to be structured, they want things to be disciplined, and it's just hard to play like that at Worlds. I think it's just very difficult to play like that at Worlds. You're on a new patch, can't play solo queue, your scrim partners are shit, you're traveling all the time. Like, it's just not good for a team like Gen G that is supposed to be like the like we do not make mistakes team.
And what I have been told by teams that have qualified early out of Swiss or who deal with these long breaks is that it's very hard to keep like the fire lit under your ass. It's very hard to like keep the motivation up.
Gen G, LNG, yeah.
I mean, it's hard to even like as a viewer to even like get super hyped throughout like the tournament, because like, bro, we're gonna have 3 best of 3s in 2 weeks, or 3 best of 5s in 2 weeks. I mean, that is like crazy. Like, it is crazy how slow this tournament is. From the beginning of, you have more best of 5s from the beginning of the like knockout stage after the play-ins of MSI to the end of MSI, significantly, like 3-4 times the amount than you do in the last 2 weeks of Worlds. I took a full vacation at this point last week. I literally just took 6 days off. I went to like a different city. You know, I came back and I landed like 3 hours before the finals. Then I watched that horrible finals between Weibo and T1 where Weibo just like got completely murdered. I mean, it's a weird tournament. And it's very weird as somebody who watches League the entire year to see like the main takeaways come from this tournament, because I do actually just think that this is like the worst tournament that we get the entire year when it comes to.
And by the way, I will say this as somebody who's been around esports for over 20 years at this point in time. This is the only tournament in the history of esports to run like this ever. It's fucking weird.
Yamato, get in there.
No, on my end, I do agree with the notion that like World is an insanely unique tournament, and I think that T1 is very, very good at dealing with a lot of the randomness. Like, I can tell you from experience that being at the World Championship, for example, like we had the last Worlds I went to was the craziest shit ever. It's like we arrived in Mexico, 2 players of mine had COVID, we had to play with subs. We made it through 4-1. I'm sitting there praying that Evie beats EG so we can fly to New York earlier than the other teams. And then he did, God bless his soul. And then like we managed to get first place, all to qualify to the next part. And then we arrive in New York, we're later than everybody else. our practice is canceled because the other teams that have media day on that day, and we have media day, and then we have media day, and then another media day, and then I contract COVID again somehow. I need to be in my room. I don't have a PC, no access. They test me again, false positive, and then it's like we're playing on stage, and it's like the randomness and how you deal with everything is a really, really different test in comparison to playing regionally, playing MSI, imagine, because it's over a shorter duration. And I think that T1's benefit, right, is that from the get-go, like obviously these players individually are really, really fucking good when they're on. But I think as an additional layer, right, I think that the fact that they've been together for so damn long and they carry that experience, I think they can see the patterns of what is going on in front of them. And I think that dealing with whether playing in different venues, different spots, different shit. Like I can imagine that it's almost better for them in a sense, because I imagine like knowing the schedule that the T1 players have to go through just because like, they're the biggest org, right? It's like like before they flew out to Europe, I heard that they had to go to a fan meet in Hong Kong. Like they have like these, they did the Hall of Legends shit. They play like show matches. Like, these guys don't fucking rest at all. So I imagine that it's like all that shit all together in terms of like what's going on. I think when finally they get some time to prepare, they deal with all the randomness well, and I think this is like the biggest strength. I think that's what Worlds comes down to, because we see teams evolving more than ever in games. Like when we look at Bilibili's journey, they started off so fucking trash, lost against LNG, right? It's like they were close games, but in terms of their prep work, it was really, really bad. And then when we see that series against Hanwha Life, when they made the evolution of, oh, we're going to blind pick the Silas, this is what they did and took it away. And then the enemy first picked Silas and they dropped the Galio. These evolutions happen real time. It happened with the DRX run. It happened also with the T1 run of last year. It's like there's an evolution that happens on stage. Like the growth you have on stage is the most significant out of anything when it comes to, of course, this tournament. Like that is where you find out about yourself. This is where you create war wounds that like you bear as scars proudly, because these are the memories you carry over into like the best of fives. Like when DRX played that best of five against T1, if it wasn't for the other best of fives dragging them to fucking hell and back, I don't think that they had the capacity to fucking stay sane in some of the spots that they were in those games. Like this shit really, really matters. And I think to T1's credit, they are good at dealing with all of the bullshit and the randomness of this tournament. That's like their biggest skill, right?
And I think that they're a team that thrives off like execution. Like I think that the things that T1 has always, like I think T1 is one of the most clutch teams, if not the most clutch team in the world.
Yes.
And I think that they have very good like individual execution from players. I've almost never seen Owner misplay a fight mechanically. It's like he'll have the wrong idea of how a fight should play out and maybe like go on the wrong target. Maybe he'll have the wrong concept of a fight, but I almost never watch like Owner misplace it, like miss a key skill shot or miss an ultimate or something like this. Like he is so like crisp when it comes to that. And I feel like a lot of these, it feels like the teams that are good at setups. I mean, we saw the same thing when Hanwha Life played against BLG. Like Hanwha Life, they were another team that the reason that I felt like they were able to beat Gen G is they were able to mimic that level of control. They had more spiciness, more skirmishing potential, but they still had the macro game almost on the level of Gen G's, so that it could be close. When they played against BLG, like BLG would be like 5k down and they would just like send it and just win a fight. You know, like they were just the team that was like still looking for flank angles. When you look at T1, there's multiple games where I just see them like understanding it's like, okay, we just need to fight well. Like it doesn't matter like 4k down, 3k down, like this is different. It's Worlds, teams are not as controlled. We just got to like show up to the fight and just fight this shit well. All right, let's go, boys. Like T1 on 3 fighting, and then they just go in and they just like they win the fight for some like Pays is like choking, like fucking like he satchels himself out of the fight. He's like, what the fuck? Who am I supposed to be going on? Like the comms are just like so fucking like unclear, and it just feels like T1 is like T1 and BLG. The reason why they're here is because they're the teams that actually like, regardless of the game state, they're like, all right, guys, we're showing up, we're fighting this way. Let's go. Let's start it. Okay, we're fighting. It's a scrap. Who wins?
I think also it's underrated, but T1 both last year and this year, basically when the meta started to fuck with them, they basically just returned to comfort. And by that, I mean, last year it was like double 80 carries, you know, in the bot lane, some of their weirder picks. when they and I think this is a very big strength of T1. When the meta may not perfectly suit them, they just go back to their bread and butter. And for 3 years
at Worlds, domestically,
yes,
they didn't do that.
No, I totally agree. They continue to just like make, force themselves into the meta domestically, and then we have to see things like Faker Smolder, and you're like, Faker, I don't know if this champion's for you, buddy. But at Worlds, when it's really desperate, they go back and they play very well on what they tend to excel at. And this roster has been the best pick comp team in the world for 3 years. And by that, I mean, they play long range engage very well. They tend to collapse on the side lanes very well. They play around vision and create traps. And they basically just constantly pick people off with a lot of single target damage and heavy single target CC. And what are we doing in these games? Oh, we're playing Ashe Vi, right? We're playing Gragas, who can knock somebody out and create a pick. Ahri, we're playing the Akali. And it's like, I applaud T1 for going back to this, but this is a great style for them. But the thing is, Gen.G knows this. They played against this a million times from T1. They've beaten this style a million times. Yep. T1's really good at it, but the downside to playing these pick compositions is when you get into late game scenarios where you do not have vision control over an objective, you cannot 5v5 very easily, right? Because they are just going to have more tools for a standard traditional AoE CC composition, heavy front to back comp than you will. And a lot of the champions like Vi, like the Pyke that you mentioned earlier, they are way worse in late game than they are in early game. And they're way worse in a full strength late game 5v5, which is why you saw the turn almost happen in game 4 of this series.
Right.
And T1, now you can continue to play pick comps in the late game, but you better be stacking Drakes. You better be first on the objective. They better be playing into you, and you better be intercepting them or collapsing on them in the side lane before they can group on you. That's how these comps work. And T1 is masterful at this. T1 is the best pick comp team, not only the last 3 years, they're the best pick comp team of all time. All right. And that is a huge credit to them, but their return to this style is something that we're seeing now. And it's not something that we saw much earlier in this tournament. And it's just like they returned to their roots after having, I think, a shaky Swiss stage last year. And it's good to see. Anyway, that's my take, like, on the T1 stuff. But I do want to say we have to conclude our Chovy.
Yeah, we got to come back to
Chovy
Throttler, which was a lot of like context. And yeah, I was gonna say, Yamato, I was gonna just give you the preface that both these guys like kind of threw out there. It's Gen.G is the best team in the world when you have time to prepare. But does that just mean that you're just not the best team in the world then? Especially when you've proven it.
The thing that's weird is it's like, no, because like most of the year is like you don't play this type of format. Like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do if you're
test. It's a different test.
What are you going to do if you're
you
Gen.G?
train for something else and then you're tested very differently at the most important tournament? It's weird.
But it's also like, what are you going to do when you're practicing day? Like, you're just going to try to be the best team possible the entire year. You're not going to like purposely be like, okay, we got to know how to play with like less practice, and we got to just train things that aren't working. Like, you're just going to try to win League of Legends in the most effective way possible, which it's like the same thing as last year, where JDG throughout the entire year was, I mean, the JDG one was more egregious because they only lost one best of 5 the entire year. But for like these teams, like they have some things that they are not super great at, and at Worlds it ends up just biting them in the ass. But they have the formula. Like, you watch these teams, you can see the formula. Even in the games they lost, you can see the formula. Gen.G game one, they're actually kind of like choking all over like the first dive was horrible. Then they had like the grub fights where T1 is literally just inting into them and they only get 1 kill because they use 5 ults on the same person instead of like finding. Then they give up the T1 Baron. Like, how often have we talked about T1 Barons? Like, T1 Baron is
who knows about these better than Gen.G? My God.
Yeah.
Like,
the thing is, when I watch Gen.G, I can't imagine them ever losing that game 4 domestically. Like, when a team throws to Gen.G in LCK, it's like, oh, it's over. Yeah, you just can't throw versus Gen.G. Like, that's how you feel. You're just like, yeah, of course you can't like do that into Gen.G. Of course they're gonna just break your necks if you give them that. If you go into a late game situation versus Gen.G, it feels like almost any team in the entire world is doomed, right? Like, you go into a late game situation where Gen.G now has the advantage on you. How can you win? and then they end up losing in these moments. And like the things you think about Gen G throughout the entire year, for example, like Pays is the best cleanup AD carry, right? Like people would be like, oh, he's like Monty would always fault him for not being like the aggressive guy that aiming was, but he was like the janitor. He was like the best janitor. Like he was gonna make sure he cleans them. When do you ever
the best janitor? It's sparkly clean. I said that.
Exactly. And then imagine him making the mistakes like he did in game 1 and game 4 in like team fights. It's like it's almost unrecognizable. Like that's Pays, bro. Like that Pays is the guy who's like, you give him a good fight, he's gonna play it mechanically perfect. He's not gonna have like the initiative to like know like when the fight should start, whatever. But if like the fight is there for him and you are now fighting, autos are gonna be fucking perfect. Like his spacing is gonna be perfect. He's gonna flash key abilities. Like that is what Pays is good at. So when I watch this Gen G team, I just feel like people just talk about it like it's just only Chovy. But I feel like the team as a whole, like Gen G definitely just looked shaky as a unit compared to how they looked the entire year. And yeah, I feel like they didn't go back to what made them great. When you think about when Gen G was tested, right? I think about when they were tested throughout the year, the 5-game series they had. There was the first time where they were down 2-1 in finals to T1, and they pulled out the Kazakhs into Xinjiao. Like that was like the whole thing. That was the turning point, was like, oh shit, now we have the Kazakhs pick into Xinjiao. Now they just can't early pick the Xinjiao as much. At MSI, where they were losing to top esports, and they fell back on the Canyon Italy, and then like that became the pick throughout the tournament. Then it became like first pick in Italy. It feels like Gen G at Worlds, for some reason, maybe it's because of the pressure or something, they don't go back to like what they're really playing well much. Like they kind of just like exist, and they just, when they die, they just die on like their normal meta stuff. I feel like Gen G, they didn't use we got our backs to this wall, now let's like show them like something unique. They just like took it this event. So I mean, I think Chovy fraudulency, if I'm doing fraud alert, I'd say his fraudulency is like a 6 or a 7 out of 10, just because the expectations are so high. But I think the idea that this proves that he is a worse player overall than like Faker because of this one tournament, I just don't buy that he shows us what he shows us for so long, and we have to just say that until he wins Worlds, he's just a bad player. He can't compete with like the best players. Like Worlds is different, and I think that eventually, I mean, what Faker said is he thinks that Chovy certainly will win Worlds at some point because he's just that good. Like Faker said that. I don't think he's ever said that before.
Also, on the point of Faker, I think, it's been kind of mysterious how much Faker's injury has been bothering him. But I would say that probably part of, I can't discount the I would say probability that having a long time off without professional matches and then the slower schedule that we were discussing earlier, surely that should help his wrist condition or his arm condition, right? And so he has looked better at Worlds the last 2 years on a slower schedule of matches and with break before Worlds. And maybe this is his injury that has been plaguing him and they haven't been making this public, right?
Yamato, get in there.
On my end, I think if we all contextualize, I think most people just put Chovy as the number 1 player coming into the Worlds. I think in that context, definitely, like he wasn't at this World Championship. I think the main thing for me, what is the strength and the weakness of Chovy, is that it's very clear that this is a man of repetition. Like he has played so many series. Like even if we think back to some of the Griffin series that they played, the stubbornness of looking the same shit over and over again has been something that I think maybe it was like at MSI, 4 bans were coming his way, so he had to dig deeper. We saw like signs of it, maybe with like the Castellan into the Nuno Oriana, but I think he is a player that is going to lock the same shit over and over again. There is moments where that is fantastic, like 5 games of fucking Azir or 4 games of Azir in that series where he had to drag his whole team, which probably was like his best individual performance in his entire career in spring. And then there's moments like, for example, in the finals against Hanwha Life, where he is looking Koki. He's really fucking good at it, but it seems like Hanwha Life were willing
but also
to
Trist
go a little
was the
bit
better
deeper.
pick for them in that series, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Of course. That's. I'm making the point that Chovy is a player that is locking the same champion over and over again. In this best of 5, I think that he played the games well, but in terms of the champions that he's locking, it is not going to put him in the driving seat. I think Faker has a very specific role on T1 where he can get away with playing the Ahri and the Sylas every game because his purpose is to make sure that he can farm side in isolation and that he can pressure the enemies in fights in terms of engage. It's like the players that are the most like extravagant and the most unique in that team is Kyria and Zeus, and they've always been.
Because
when the meta...
here's the reason, and this flies to your point, this flies under the radar a lot of the time. One of the best synergies in T1 is Faker and Owners Engage synergy. And you do not typically think about mid lane plus jungle coordinating on engages as like the primary engage duo. Obviously you think, oh, what about top? What about support? Right? But in T1, because to your point about Keria and Zeus's champion pools, the onus has fallen to Faker many, many times.
Yes,
and
yes.
like
and
that is like think about him playing Gragas in the mid lane, right? These are he tends to select picks, even the Kaisa, these are picks that are going to start engages and are going to start the process of creating picks. Ahri, Akali, Sylas, right?
Azir.
Yeah,
and just to continue, right? Like I know T1 fans know out there. Like, do you guys remember these moments when they were playing like Twisted Fate and like Lucian Nami, and they just couldn't find like the pieces in jungle and mid to support how they want to play? And I think on Chovy's side in that team, if him and Canyon and Keen are not in the driving force position, like for example in the Sylas game, like he's even CS, but he's losing side against Yone, Faker is pushing him. It's like, oh, it's nice, you even against Yone, it's a tough matchup, but that's not enough. Like you need to do more in this team, especially with how your bot lane is playing, because those are the series you want a player to fucking dig deep and find opportunities through his champion choice. Dom already mentioned it, right? It's like MSI, Aurelion Sol, Corki had to be permabanned against him because whenever Chovy's playing a champion where he's inevitable, he's the best in the world, best there's ever been in terms of playing Smolder, Aurelion Sol, Corki. It's like the Corki package deal and how they synchronize around it. That's like the epitome of the Gen G play. And that's the point where they went to Yone and Karthus and Canyon and fucking Chovy, like stepped up to the table. In these series, if you're picking Ahri and Nocturne, it's like Ahri, Nocturne, like you don't fucking decide anything in that game. You're hoping that the enemy is going to play bad. You're hoping that your top lane is going to overperform and that your bot lane is going to be in the driving seat. And Pays, when he's been driving, he's been crashing. Whether it was like 3 moments in Game 5 against Hanwha Life, or it was this Ashe moment where he needed to hit. Like he needs to play simple games. He's the best at playing simple games. Some AD carries hate playing simple games. Like Elk and Jackie Love, when they're playing simple games, they're like, fuck me, I want to fight, and they just walk out and wave and die. Like, there's players that have that issue. So for me, to contextualize Chovy, like the main issue for me is that stubbornness is his strength and weakness, because I imagine his lane is so fucking good, because usually probably he plays 200 Koki games in scrims where he just fucking spaces everybody like a fucking drifter, right? And I think this is the main issue. It's like you need to be capable of going deep. Knight, on the other side, Showcase, 12 champion choices at the tournament, is going fucking deep, and it goes a long way here. And I think to come back to the segment, the fraud alert, I would put like 5, 6. If I put him in the context of I wanted to be number 1, right? I thought he's going to be number 1, and he clearly wasn't at this tournament. But I think when people say he's a choker, that's way too far, because he had like an 8 out of 10. And I think an 8 out of 10 is still better than the majority of players. But in the context of being number 1, you're expecting some fucking 10s to flow there, like that game he had against Top Esports, when he's fucking doing the shit with Yone, where they engage on mid and they came back and they like killed. Like that's cool, but no one's gonna let him play Yone, right? I
mean, all I'm saying is imagine if Faker played a game like Chovy did in game number 4, where Keria just died like 8 times on Maokai and was just fucking like running it mercilessly. Like, would people be like, wow, is Faker a choker? Like, would they go and like analyze every single Faker auto in the last team fight when his AD carry walks up and dies? Like, it just seems so like strange the way that we like contextualize Chovy, where it's like when obviously like he didn't play as well, and that's like what we all agreed with. But then like people make it seem like his gameplay is like inherently flawed. Like he has like these really big like inherent weaknesses to the game. It's like, bro, this is like literally why they're the best team in the world all year, is because these things that he does really well. Like, generating a lot of gold, getting items, and then carrying team fights later on. Like, that is an effective way to play mid lane. People make it seem like because at Worlds it hasn't been effective, like that it can't be ever effective. Like I think Chovy's gonna just win Worlds at some point. Like, I don't want him to win Worlds. I'd be happy for Knight to fucking win Worlds every year, bro. I'm super down for that. I'm down for LPL to always win. But like, Chovy's gonna win a Worlds at some point, and then people will just make it sound like, oh, it was only a matter of time. And then when that shit happens, I'm gonna fucking blow my brains out. I'm gonna tell you that. Like, when I see the way that the narratives happen right now, and then people pretend that they always saw Chovy coming and that it was inevitable. Nah, that's gonna be the end for me, bro. That's where we're hanging from the ceiling fan on stream. You tune in. Dom's like, oh, I wonder what Dom's reaction gonna be, and you're just gonna see my feet dangling into the camera, and you'll be like, what the? That's just gonna be crazy, bro. Like, it's just gonna be
into the AM,
bro.
He's gonna be like, he's gonna be like, oh wow, look at Dom cleaning his very high ceiling roof in his Texas house. Let's go get some barbecue. That's what it is. No, that's gonna be the death of me, bro. That's the death of me when Chovy eventually wins Worlds, and then people start telling me that like they saw it coming. That will be the moment where
somebody stop this man. Stop this man. Yeah. Go next segment. We all said 6. Go next segment. Jesus Christ, it's too graphic.
No. We're at the end.
Jesus Christ, bro.
We're at the end.
It's too much.
You will, Dom.
There was.
I'll put Yamato in the wall.
Oh, that's what it was. It was. Ruler's a free agent. Viper is a free agent. Oh, they're free agents in the LCK.
Literally all of Gen G. Chovy is a free agent.
Chovy's a free agent. Yeah, everyone.
All of Gen G are free agents.
Yeah,
I've got one pays for you who will definitely be the mega carry on the next team that he's on, guys. He is that guy. That's what the fans tell me. So I'm just waiting. So when he gets onto Nongshim, guys, he's still gonna be great, right?
Maybe he just needs to suffer a bit.
Nah, Jiwoo is under contract. They like Jiwoo over at Nongshim.
He's getting the Yike treatment of the LCK, where it's like his team just wins so much that it's just like people just talk about him like he's something that he's not.
Yeah. Pays the Giant X. Let's go.
There are more AD carries than spots, I think, in the LCK. I think there's one extra because I think Teddy is moving on. But then you could go Kwangdong Freaks. I mean, I think they like Henna for being K4X. They like Jiwoo for Nongshim.
Honestly, like, the ruler thing is very interesting to me.
Go KT. With Deft moving on.
Yeah, KT's open as well.
That'd be the most normal one, I would think.
I will tear my eyeballs out because the support he's going to be paired with is going to be like just suffering. Like that's from the ruler's journey, besides playing with the hands. Like, it's just been suffering.
And missing. Was probably the best support he had.
I think Ruler, though, the situation's really interesting because he was supposed to be contracted through the end of next year, which means that and by the way, he had with LPL salary caps lowering, he was on some insane deal, guys, like insane deal with JDG. So what's interesting to me is Ruler literally agreed to stop his contract with JDG, and which probably is better than any contract he could sign now, by the way, because I don't think anyone's going to pay him more money when he was on the old salary cap, right? And they were assembling the $16 million JDG super team last year. So what's fascinating is Ruler must be trying to intentionally take money to get on a different team. And to me, that probably means he's coming back to Korea. And if he's coming back to Korea, he's probably going back to Gen G.
Ooh. I like that, man. I like that.
There's just not going to be a lot of time for off season.
I just don't understand why he would stay in China and then just like intentionally take less money. That doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. So that's my theory.
I mean, I assume he's going back to the LCK as well. I wanted him to go back to the LCK too. Like watching him in LPL with Yagao, it's like, nah, bro, you don't deserve this shit. You're like Yagao is fucking running you down. Like, this is pathetic, bro.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just that simple. They said, "Hey, Ruler, we've signed Yagao for another year." And he's like, "No, let me out. Anything but this."
All right.
I can't imagine, bro. Genji, Ruler, Canyon, Chovy, Keen.
Look, they would have to re-sign all those players, which I just don't think is going to happen because the LCK salary caps are coming in next year. So basically, if that were to happen,
they all have to take pay cuts.
They'd have to take pay cuts. And it's true that the Gen G players did take pay cuts to be on this team, so maybe they continue to do that, right? That's certainly a possibility if their desire to run it back is stronger than their desire to min-max. Then maybe you get Ruler. But the thing is there would somehow even be less money because obviously Pays isn't getting paid anything right now because he was a rookie on his rookie contract. So they would have to take more of a pay cut probably to get Ruler. So I don't think they could run back this same roster. But it might be something. It might be Chovy and Ruler again.
Yeah. Well, the question for me is T1 breaking up? Is that going to happen? You guys think?
It feels like it. I think
it should.
Yes,
it should happen.
It feels like the Bulls
if they win again,
stand.
I don't think they will. If they can,
I think they will. I think they will.
Oh my god!
Right, have you guys
really?
seen the chef, bro?
I think Dom, at a certain point, the money of the contract offers that would be coming in for some of these T1 players after winning back-to-back Worlds would be so
like
huge.
Where? I mean, like, where are they going to get the money with everything being rumored that it's producing?
Thunder Talk.
I don't think Thunder Talk has money, bro. I think LPL doesn't have much money. Like, I assume if they win, they just do everything possible to just keep the lineup together. I mean, if this team could stack championships,
I don't know. Like, at least if you are at the negotiation table, right? Like, I think there is probably like a lot of incentives that you can offer by being on T1, unless that lifestyle has gotten to the point where it's exhausting. Because I imagine it is, right?
Hong Kong before, or wherever they had to go, somewhere in Asia before they went to Europe for the signing, and then Red Bull right afterwards, after Worlds, whether you win or you lose, probably. I don't know if they've officially announced it or they're going to announce it, but that was something that they're doing. Fan meets everywhere. It is one of the most tiring schedules on top of one of the most demanding jobs in esports, which is being a pro player. Like it is.
But it's also like on the flip side, retiring as a T1 player, I think is broken. It's really, really broken. I think it's
Ask Bang and Wolf, Antara as well. These guys are living pretty nice out here in Korea, man.
Yeah. But Bang didn't retire. He went over to North America. He ate 2 Burger King.
Still a T1
retired.
He played for Africa.
He retired on T1, and then his retirement was spent in North America. Yes, I agree, Yamato.
All right. Okay. Well, that is our fraud alert. Chovy getting 6 or 7. Let us know in the comments below. Is that high enough for you? Is that high enough for you T1 fans and or Gen G fans? Or are you more faithful?
No, because the only thing that will satisfy them is an 11 out of 10 or some shit like that. So
yeah,
give them a chance. Give them a chance.
I don't know why people want Chovy to be so bad. I guess it's because he's like threatening Faker's legacy.
Bro, it's because we put him number 1. That's why we put him number 1. Everyone puts him number 1.
Everyone put him number 1.
Yeah, he should be number 1
because he was. He was number 1.
Yeah, he was. But I'm saying that's why people hate that we put Chovy number 1.
So we should put Faker. So when Faker is like, should we actually put Faker like number 1? Should we put Faker like top 5 in like our player?
Just next year, if they don't make it, Faker's the number 1 player going to Worlds.
Jesus.
Because that's the title of the video. If T1 went to Worlds, if Zufkafka went to Worlds, where would I place them?
I hate that. There's nothing that I hate more than seeing
Yes, that's
ZOFGK. Like, guys, I love ZOFGK. Like, why? Like, why did that? How does that? Like, it doesn't roll off the tongue. It doesn't sound good. Like, how did that become like the acronym that we decided to use for this T1 lineup? Like, why do we just be like, oh, the first letter of each of their names? We're just gonna put it together. Like, no one did this with the fucking old like Bang and Wolf roster, did they? Like, I don't remember that ever happening where people were like, oh, like this roster is fucking. What would have been like DBF BW? Like, what the fuck? Like, no one was typing that shit before. What the hell?
Bro,
BB. Remember, they were subbing out Bengi and Blank.
They're bringing in a player with a vowel as the first letter to make it sense. That's what's coming. Next
vowel is the first one. Oh, oof.
All right.
Oof. That'll be the name. Oof. Nice. Right.
All right. Let's move on forward here to our next segment, which is brought to you by our friends over at Into the AM, which wants to remind you there is a site-wide sale from October 27th through the 31st with up to 50% off plus 10% off with the code LFN. They've been great partners with us here on the show. You guys have done your part and bought on in to get shirts. I threw off the bomber because it's getting a little warm in here. I got the bomber. Monty's got his shirt. Yamato's got his shirt. Dom rocks his occasionally. Mine, my shorts that I always show you is they're in the dryer. I forgot to run the dryer before I went to Monty's house for dinner, but I love those shorts. They hug my thighs oh so sweetly, but still stay loose right in the gut area. They are great, Monty.
Yeah. And the deals are really good. Obviously, they have tons of menswear. They've got a bunch of fall stuff like button-ups, flannels. They've got, like you said, the bomber jackets. They've got shirt jackets, which are, for fall weather. They've got waffle Henleys. They've got everything over there and everything on the site up to 50% off right now. Plus, you always get an additional 10% off, even when they're having a sale with the code LFN. So you guys should head on over there. Also, they get free shipping to like many, many places around the world, including a bunch of places in Europe. If you hit minimum order thresholds, you guys can take a look at that as well. They've got everything you need in terms of menswear. We know you guys have been happy with that. And we're going to do a special like graphic tee collaboration with them. That's going to be coming up soon too. dGon's got his Into the AM athletic shorts now. They hug his thighs like you wished you could.
Yeah, look at that. They got a nice little zipper in the back for my wallet as well. And it's just so great, man. These are my favorite pair of shorts for sure. Into the AM got everything for everyone. Go check it on out, intotheam.com/LFN. Support your boys while getting yourself geared up for workouts and the winter months. Got the W's in there. Can you say the player team name one more time, Yamato? It's just so good. Like the you're adding all these vowels that didn't exist. The Zoofka. Yes, thank you. All right. I'm sure they would also, if get themselves some Into the AM. We'll see if we can maybe do that in the future. I don't know. We'll see. All right. It's time for our next segment presented by Into the AM. It's the opposite of the .A award. It's the Into the AM glow up at Worlds. Who was the most improved player at Worlds? Let's check it out. Real quick, Monty, who was your .A award winner? I missed that.
No .A award winner this year.
What? The bloodlust.
The problem is like it's really hard to give it to a player who makes semifinals because like you can't play that shit and make semifinals if we're being honest.
What about like Kingen or some shit? Like he was hyped up pretty much.
Kingen was not that hyped up, dude.
Aiming
Nobody was like,
ass, I think.
Yeah, sure. Wait, who'd you say, Yamato?
Aiming. I thought aiming was horrible for what I expected of him.
But nobody's like, King in my goat going into Worlds. Like, you have to understand, the .A award exists for very specific things, like Tien winning MVP of the LPL and then being terrible at Worlds. It existed for .A having an amazing... It started in 2013 because .A had an insane performance domestically, and then he literally just epically shit the bed in groups at Worlds and like got knocked out in a tiebreaker from Gambit, played the worst Gragas you've actually ever seen. So yeah, I mean, I think like it's hard to say anybody who is super hyped up like really under delivered at this World.
So we just turned the segment around. We just started talking about the
but the glow up.
I can say, bro, one player that really pissed me off, bro, 369. Like he had two good Cassandra games, but I don't know what the fuck he was doing in the lane swap. Still bad from MSI, and then that Ken and AD game, bro. That is haunting me forever, bro.
I think 369 defender, bro. Like I think that game they just fucked him in draft. Like if he doesn't go AD, how does the team play? Like can he go AP Kennen in this game?
I don't know how they reached that conclusion, right? Like the fact that they picked Kennen is horrible, but also how he played. I don't know, bro. It was just too memorable in a horrible way. Most improved, I guess the easy one, of course, is T1, right? It's like obviously T1. Sure. Like we I think everyone imagined the world where they're going to play super super good, but it's like where they were, bro. Like their summer playoffs was ass. They lost to Damwon, bro. They lost to Damwon. I can't believe they lost to Dom one because I thought Dom was gonna go out. Me and Dom, we watching in person. I was in Texas. We both thinking Dom one ass. They're not gonna make it. Even the series that he won, I couldn't believe what King got away with. His Camille was flying. So it's just T1. And then if I'm adding some flavor here, I do think that like when I look at like a player that stood out to me was Whipple. I think that Whipple has a certain element of how he plays that he carried over. But I think that, especially looking back at like his MSI, I thought that this was going to be very, very hard to translate against better players. But I think that in the series where they were competitive, I did think that Whipple's flair really, really came through. I really liked him in the PSG game. I liked that he came back in the Olaf game after getting dove twice. There is a certain uniqueness to Whipple with how resilient he is in a game and how behind he is not going to really affect how he's going to play and how he uses his HP as a fucking resource, like that Galio game when they won, where he's posturing forward. I can literally hear his comms. Guys, fight! Look what they're doing! Go! What are they doing? They're entering our space! You know, and I love the fact that his playstyle carried over. It wasn't something that was only domestically. I do think that he really, really ramped up coming into the World Championship, and I think that the goofiness.
I just love that you're Whippo's number 1 Glazer. That's my favorite thing about
it. I think he had a great Worlds. I really think so. I really think so.
I don't look at FlyQuest roster and I think to myself, yeah, Whippo was the best player, but you do you, Dom.
Most improved
player. That's okay. That's
no, I mean from win, because if you go from MSI, it would be Busio, who looked like he couldn't land a Nautilus.
He was terrible
in the ocean, you know.
Yeah, sure. I don't mind Busio too.
Yeah, I thought Jensen played so much better at this tournament than he did at MSI. I think Jensen was looking completely different out there. He's my most improved.
All right. Okay. So Yamato went with Whippo out in left field. Where are you going with this one, Monty?
I mean, I think Busio is actually a really good shout out because he was like so bad at MSI, not even remotely competitive. They get Mithy on the roster. Mithy coaches him up. I think it was a lot of mental blocks because when there were high stakes situations, Busio looked really bad. And people will say Masu, and Masu did look excellent in this tournament. But if we're actually just straight up talking about most improvement, I mean, Masu has been pretty.
I feel like you guys have forgot about a player, bro. Like when I say my player, you're gonna just realize like that this has to be the most improved player.
Okay,
it has to be Breathe, right? Like Breathe.
That's
is
fair.
He not the most improved? Like this guy was like completely 1v9 in so many, and we got to see him play so many best of threes back against the wall, generating just massive fucking leads. And he went from being like somebody who was like generally pretty bad throughout most of LPL up until the end there, and he was just. He was just insane in a lot of games, bro. Like he was just dicking like Zika even. He was completely gapping Oscar when he played versus King, and he completely gapped King, and he just looked like the best version of himself that we've seen in literally like years.
Yeah,
I would add to that. I think that he definitely like improved in LPL playoffs, but I think there's a conversation to be had about how playing top lane in the LPL is really fucking hard. Because it's like he looks bad against Bin, but that's Bin. But it's like looking at the other regions in terms of what top laners they send, it's like the name, it's like 369 was the worst one
right now.
Which is like kind of crazy. The 369 is the worst one. It's a 369. Zeke had a solid tournament. As Dom said, Breathe, I think was fucking amazing. And then Bin. It's like, wow. Like Ale didn't make it. Ale was fucking playing good. It's like LPL top lanes is real shit. So I'm with you, Dom. The Breathe improvement is fucking sick.
Yep.
Was that where you're going with though, Monty? Was it the Busio? Because I had like.
I mean, here's another one. People may not like to hear this if you're a T1 stan, but Keria didn't play great towards the end of summer, and he is. Maybe the best. I mean, I think he's the best support player that we've seen at this event, and he's been a huge catalyst in their wins. So even though we know Keria is an all-time excellent support player, the difference between his
not as good as Barrel, though, according to Cajual's community. According to Cajual's community, Barrel is better than Keria all time.
But what if Beryl wins this and then he also gets the 2 wins in the back-to-back
If
world?
Beryl wins this, I don't think he will.
No. If Keria wins this, then he also
okay.
gets the 3 worlds in a row and 2 wins, right?
Yeah, then he's better than Beryl. It's all depending on this best of 5. It doesn't matter like how they've played individually for like 5 years. What matters is does Keria win this one best of 5 for his legacy?
Yeah. So for me, like, I want to shout out Busio just because I think he was really bad in summer or in spring playoffs. He was really bad at MSI, and his improvement was notable. He was even making some of the snap calls, like catching out Chovy on that Ari engage with like the Alistair flash. I mean, he had some really decisive moments, and that level of improvement from I was literally watch him at MSI playing Rumble, running around in a circle in river in front of Baron Pit, use no abilities and die. And we went from that to here's a grub fight where Chovy appears out of a brush with an Ari ult and he immediately engages and he goes in and he makes the play. So credit to him, man. I think that's a titanic improvement.
Yeah, like Breathe was up there. I thought Busio or Masu you could probably go for. You could pick your T1 player. I thought it would be Owner, not because Owner was playing bad during the.
He's probably the best player for a lot of summer.
I think it was because he's been able to.
He was asked in summer playoffs.
He got gapped by Pino, but I feel like that is the meta that you expect him to get gapped on when he's playing like Sejuani versus Poppy, and it's like Peanut's Poppy. Like domestically, I just feel like Peanut is just gonna like put those games away with Poppy, and like Owner is the guy where when you get into like the Vi meta, these types of picks, he's gonna fucking start smurfing. Like he just needs to have like more potential from the champion, bro. Like even though he's a good Sejuani player, it's not enough, bro.
Just because I'm running out of segments to fit in our entity, and any G2 players or shout outs for this segment or Dade Award.
I think the closest player to winning Dade Award was probably Impact because he was the LCS MVP and he underdelivered at Worlds. But I don't really think like the thing about the Dade Award that people don't understand is it's not like player who played bad. It's the player with this epic gap between expectations and reality. And being LCS MVP doesn't mean that we think you're going to be the best player in your position, right? Yeah. And under deliver. Like truly, you guys have to understand that when the Dade Award has been given out, it has been like mega failures, like unbelievably embarrassing performances for players that are like top 3 in the world at their position.
All right. Well, we tried. So we've got ourselves a Busio, 2 Breeze, and also honorable mention Keria. I think those are all super fair glow ups. Especially given the fact that, we remember where they were. We remember where they were at one point in this year, and they had standout moments and moments to build on for their career and maybe another trophy to go with it if you are Keria. Are those the best candidates for the glow-ups for this year's Worlds? Let us know in the comments below. While you're there, make sure to like and subscribe, and take the second to head on over to Into the AM to check out their new sale who supported this segment. IntoTheAM.com/LFN to get 50% off plus 10% more with the code and free shipping. Thanks to our friends over at Into the AM. All right, final segment. Even though we've broken down most of the semifinals, any more things that we need to talk about the semifinals and the World Finals preview, the potential back-to-back 3 trips to the World Finals for T1. Will they come out victorious against BLG? Will Knight and GigaBen get their first championship? That is the topic of this week's Galaxy Brain Club. All right, y'all. BLG and T1, just like we drew.
We didn't talk about Weibo versus BLG at all, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's right. We did not.
I mean, it was really boring, so I don't blame.
I did tweet out like, oh, this, what is it? This series could have been an email. This meeting could have been an email. It felt great to see BLG succeed. It felt bad to see Weibo not be able to like put up as much of a fight, get themselves a victory.
They could never put up a fight against BLG. Like BLG is just so much better than them. It is what it is. Same thing happened in finals of LPL. Same thing happened it is what it is. Like BLG is just vastly superior in so many different areas.
Even
unplayable.
after
Weibo is
that,
just baby Bin. Like Weibo is just baby Billy. Like they try to be the team that like pressures through bot and dives bot, but that's what Billy was for the majority of the year. And I think Weibo, like if I look at their players, they're just like the worst versions of their counterparts. I just think that's what Weibo is. Like I think it was so obvious in the games too. It's like, oh, they can't break bot against these bot laners that like to be fighting to the death on bot. And then it's like Breathe is like a worse version of Bin. And then the same thing I would say with Xiaohu against Knight. It's like Xiaohu has some pocket picks here and there, right?
BLG figured out the OP strategy of banning Orianna and Aurora, and then it turns out Xiaohu doesn't have any more champions.
Yeah. It's like the only outlier was Tarzan, right? But it's like playing AP jungles, like carrying through jungle wasn't really the real deal this time around, right? And he had to pick Maokai.
Yeah, pulled out Elise. Ugh. Yeah, that first game was just Weibo just let Smolder stack and called it a day after that. I was like,
well, I mean, it's also that the later you get into that game, you're playing a composition that doesn't have really a form of primary engage, and they certainly don't have a non-committal engage. Plus, they're all very low range. Like Weibo can win with that comp as long as they have control on objectives, and BLG is playing into them. But they didn't have control over objectives. BLG like get the first two Drakes, so it's just like free Smolder scaling, and then they're just like mega outranged by Varus and Smolder. I mean, I think it's actually just very, very hard for Weibo to enact a win condition at that point in time.
And they played against Skarner Jax 1-2 the whole series. Like that was, I don't know, bro. I don't get it. Really, it's like I have been on the Yumi front, but I have an explanation. What's the explanation there, Danny? You know, what's the explanation?
I mean, they tried to make it hard Jax Skarner games where Jax and Skarner don't actually get to play the game. Like the first game, the Jax wasn't really like that important over the course of the game, right? Like most of the game is just predicated around Smolder doing his thing, like Varus poke, stuff like this. So the thing about Jax, about giving Bin Jax is like he's very aware of like what he can do in games generally. So like because he knows the champion so well, he can understand when he needs to be like full sending, when he needs to just kind of play as like a front line, when he needs to flank, when he needs to actually like, you know, just play for his equal down. He goes a bunch of different Jax builds. I think he's just too proficient at the champion to give it over to him, because he'll be able to play all the different versions of Jax games well. I mean, if you look at the Jax games he's playing, some of the Jax games are not easy Jax games. Like he's playing into what? First game he's playing against Poppy, Renata, like Callista is not easy when it comes to AD carries, like Brand, just like annoying comps. Like the other one was Maokai, Renata, Elise. Game after that was Rumble, Sejuani, Yone. That was probably the easiest one he played. I don't know. I just feel like in general, he's just too good at the champion. And then also Jax is just one of the best 2v1 champions, one of the best lane swap champions in the entire game. Just is what it is.
Also, it's really good into Yone, right? Which was the whole strat. They first pick Yone 2 games. And I think in most cases, when you want to first pick Yone, the Jax ban just comes out because he just matches him so well on side and fights so well against him too.
I mean, T1 is probably going to ban Jax for most of the series, if not the whole series, I would assume. Because I
actually wonder if Billy bans Jax instead. Like they were banning Jax in their previous series, and in the best of one that they played previously, they got Jax. The problem is like I feel like Zeus will be really comfortable like playing shit into Jax. Like he can play the Gnar, he'll play the Rumble.
I mean, he got clapped.
Play Gragas.
It was borderline good. Like I think he was going to lose the game into the Jax up until that Baron for BLG. I mean, they were just winning hard through side. I mean, Bin solo killed him under turret 1v1. Then there was the play bot lane where they got an advantage. That's what made them start the Baron. It felt like that's just not an answer into Bin Jax.
Well, Bin, I think if anything, Billy, I think they should just ban Gragas. Because I think at least they don't need to pick Jax away and they can wait. And I think Gragas, like removing Gragas from the pool puts a lot of pressure. Because I think Zeus has looked insane on the Gragas. That's his go-to answer into it. And I think that if he plays, like if Bin plays Gnar into Zeus Jax, I kind of favor Bin in those pockets. And then they have that pressure on them. It's like if Gragas ban on 3 comes out, because I think Billy can play around with leaving like Yone and Aurora open. And then like a Gragas ban can really throw a very nice curveball because that's his go-to answer.
I think the weirdest thing about this is like, does Aurora even get banned? Because I think neither of these teams plays like any good Aurora at all. Like I think that Aurora is just
I think the thing is we don't know about T1's Aurora because Faker had a game on it before it ended up getting banned. He actually looked pretty good in that one game.
He did.
And then we just haven't seen it played. Like I actually wonder if Faker is gonna like whip out a pretty good Aurora game here if he's given the opportunity.
I mean, they just perma ban it on red side, and every team bans it on red side against them. So I mean, we'll see.
Yep.
We'll see if he's able to play it.
But this is the World Finals, and sometimes you like take those risks to like let something through draft, right? Or you think you have an answer to something, and you kind of just let it go.
I just think that Aurora is like the champions that he's been playing. The thing about Faker is like it feels like he wants to play something that has just like more like side lane mobility and stuff. Like that's why I feel like the Ahri Silas are so nice, And like Aurora, you do have side lane mobility, but it's like it feels really fucking bad if you have to like ult and it's kind of janky, like ult W to try to get out of situations. I think it's harder to play the way that I think he wants to play because it's more like team fighting as opposed to picking is the way I see Aurora. Like Aurora, you got to like set up
unless
really
you pair it with a
team
Nocturne and you did what Gen G did, right?
I don't like the Nocturne at all, bro. Like I think the Nocturne is super fake. I feel like the Gen G like Nocturne Aurora Ahri that they did, I think that mind game the entire tournament, bro. Like what is Nocturne's win rate at this tournament? I feel like it only loses games, but people
it was mostly played by bad teams though. So I mean,
T2.
I mean, it was played by Gen G versus T1. Like it was played by.
I mean,
like,
we could argue that.
like,
look, we could argue though that in the Gen G versus T1 game that it was a mistake of execution because at the critical fight they let Faker TP instead of Nocturne ulting and coordinating the Jax TP flank. So
yeah, I just think you have to do so much to make it. What is it?
What do we think the win rate is?
It's very binary. It's very
30%.
binary.
It's 40. It's 40%. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be like closer to the 30s, but it was 40.
What is it in recent like in like playoffs?
Yeah.
Is there a way to see that?
I'll just count, I guess. But yeah, keep going.
I do agree with you guys that it was overused, but I still think it can be used well. It's just most teams are not going to be able to do it. And I also just think it's very binary and the burden of execution is so high that it's probably not worth the risk.
0-2 because Weiwei played it twice. 0-3 because Hanwha Life. Not good.
They I mean the Hanwha Life game was super tragic.
Yep.
They had no business playing that Nocturne, right?
Yeah, I wonder what type of jungle matchups we'll see in this because like Skarner is something that's going to be high prio. I think that you probably shouldn't give Shun Skarner. I think Shun has maybe been the best Skarner at this event. I thought he was really good in like the first couple games, and he played it well like when he played against G2. So I don't know if Skarner will be up. Maybe it ends up being like a red side ban throughout the whole series. But I'm interested to see if we get Wukong from Shun into the Vi of Owner because that is like a matchup that Wukong players really like. That is like the matchup for Wukong is you hope that they early pick a Vi and you can play Wukong, and Shun is just somebody who really likes playing Wukong, and it feels like that's something that's not really on T1's radar when it comes to picks.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because that's one of those matchups where like the Wukong can actually like fuck up the Vi early on, or you can just kind of match up the farming. Like we've seen a lot of Wukong into Vi invades like pre-level 3 a lot of the time. I mean historically. So I'm curious about that.
My main concern about
counter engage.
My main concern on Billy's side is like I have battled for On like really hard. I thought coming into the tournament he's the best support in the world, and we're in a weird spot where like a lot of the like On has had a horrible tournament in my opinion. Like he found some footing on the Rakan, but I think that streamlined how like much you can do with your champion because it's like a classic champion for him. But I didn't think he looked good when he picked Nico into Renata.
It almost feels like he's trying to be Keria because Keria picked Nico into him in the first game, right?
No, but to be honest, like that, he has played Nico super fucking well in the past. Like this is something
I think I looked it up. He had played like only a few games of it ever.
I mean,
and those games he played fucking good. I think like my main concern, right, is that it's like
he's played it like 3 times in his career, I believe. I'm looking at it.
Yeah, so like the window of Nico being useful support is a very narrow window, right?
Yes.
Like what I wanted to add is like I think he looks fine on Rakan because you can get away with a lot, but like in the other games he just doesn't look like himself. And I think that if Blue side, the T1 prep is that they are blind picking Renata. The answers into Renata are the range supports. On has a history of playing range supports insane. Like I think coming into the tournament that he was the most complete player, because I think he plays the melee supports really well and the range supports super well too. He's very, very complete as a player. And this tournament just hasn't been it. Like, that's what my biggest concern is, that Korea is just in shape. I think it's the biggest distance between someone that is number one in the position at the tournament.
Matchup, I agree, yeah.
Just the biggest distance out of anybody else, because I do think Bin is better than Zeus. I think Knight is better than Faker. But like, that's in the bottom side, that's where I think that there's a cause for concern there, because probably maybe Rakan gets banned, and then you'll have to see what are the answers they prepare into the Renata blind. Like, On still has that in him, and that can change. But with what he's shown at this tournament so far, I am kind of worried. But I do think when it comes to Knight versus Faker, like what we talked about before, it's like Chovy simplified and streamlined the matchups in ways. And I think that we all agree what Faker is good on is like the range, like the champions that can farm side, play in isolation and engage. So we know that the Ahri, the Silas, and of course the Yone will come out. And I think that in this tournament, Knight has shown that he's capable of going deeper. And I think that is where you need to challenge that. Like, if you have answers prepped, or like, let's say you drop the Galio Kindred into the Silas, then you have to be worried about blind picking Silas. And then maybe if they have room to open up Yone and Aurora, and they start chipping away at the pool of what Faker wants to play, in a case where, let's say the enemy bans Aurora on 3 and Yone is out, and they already preemptively banned mid laners, I think they can create a circumstance where Knight will have more agency in the game, and you will have to unfold what Faker has prepared past the point of good Ahri Silas games.
Yeah, it's also true, though, that, you know, we've seen the Orianna bans versus Faker, but he hasn't picked it when it's been up. And I think that's because they want to play the, like you're saying, the engage pick champions on Faker. And they're saying, no, we don't want to play Ori right now at this tournament because we're comfortable playing this style. And I am curious how much BLG can attack that style by attacking Faker's champion pool, because people are like, oh, he can play Ahri. And that's true. I mean, he's a very good, or he can play Orianna. You can play, sure, you can give him that. But playing Orianna is going to fundamentally change the way that T1 has been winning games in this playoff.
Yeah, I think also when you pick Orianna versus Knight, like, he has a lot of picks you have to be scared of. I mean, one is like the Syndra that I think that Knight is really proficient at, and that's a matchup that's actually like playable now and good, whereas before, like, that wasn't in the mix at the last World Championship. So I think that what Faker's really comfortable is playing like the Orianna versus like Talia and these types of champions that are less active. I think that it is kind of scary if you are going something like Vi Orianna and you play into BLG playing, you know, like Wukong Syndra. You know, I can see them doing really well on these types of 2v2 matchups, and I think it would limit what T1's been doing well.
So a couple of catch-up stats. 0-4 on Nocturne in quarterfinals and semifinals. Only one game of Wukong for Owner this year. If you go back to last year, he played 13 times, but only one.
That's a signature Jhin champ, so that's...
I mean, Shun has some champions that he's always been like historically like pretty good on. I mean, obviously the Wukong is one. The other one is the Kindred. Like, he's always had insane Kindred for the most part. I want to see what the bot lane meta is, because I feel like when T1 is winning like this, they always have like their own meta on lock. Like, they're very good. The thing that's interesting is that On is a very good Renata player himself, but it's harder to pick Renata into T1 than it is for T1 to pick Renata into you, because if you pick Renata into T1, then that opens up Caitlyn Lux, that opens up like Nico plus X and Ashe support. Just a bunch of these picks, a Bard, for example, all these picks that I think are just more advantage to Keria. So it's one of these types of things that it's like, you don't really want to pick the Renata, but you don't want to play into the Renata either. Do you just have to ban Renata for the entire series because they looked really good on it? Or are you going to take the risk and try like a Leona into Renata game and just rely on the fact that you're going to execute well enough for it to work? Because Renata is not good in every single game, but it seems like Keria is so comfortable on it, he's like willing to play it in every game, and you're really going to have to break that confidence. It's not going to be as easy as like, oh, we blind a champ or we blind a team comp that looks hard for Renata and he's just not going to pick it.
And even in like skirmishes, Keria has been warping games on the Renata, like him walking mid in game number 1 and like getting the handshake on Chovy actually just straight up, you know, it's probably the biggest factor that caused Genji not to be able to like contest the first grub. So he's being really annoying on this champion, right? And he's fucking up teams' timings on it. So yeah, I think that's actually
And they just have a lot of Renata pairings, right? Like they have the Kalista Renata if it's up, they have the Ashe Renata, they have the Varus Renata. I mean, the thing is, most teams are not like don't want to play that much Varus, but BLG is one of the teams that showed a pretty good Varus. I thought Elk was pretty insane on Varus in game one versus Weibo. So we'll see what the war is in draft. I think it's so interesting because like, how do you even come to your conclusions? Like, how are you coming to your conclusions? You're just doing what we're fucking doing it with the players in the room, and you're just talking about because like you don't actually have anyone to like scrim against that's really going to give you the good resistance, so you can really test your theories.
You're like looking through your spreadsheets that you took in scrims against this team, being like, well, shit, what was this? And then you got the spreadsheets of their live games, and then you got your buddies who are leaking their scrim picks to you, going through the shadow network of professional players who talk to each other. Just checking. You're just going back in your Discord logs 2 weeks and seeing what somebody else said to you about the picks and the scrims, right?
Yeah. No way. I mean, G2 is giving great scrim practice to their partners in crime, their Red Bulls, rivalry homies right now.
Now he does conspiracies. He only doesn't like T1 conspiracies.
Yeah, see, he hates conspiracies until he makes them.
T1 conspiracies we can't, but
I'm trying to keep my job, guys. That's all.
Yeah. I'll take it further. So Red Bull is actually offering G2 more money to scrim with T1 if T1 wins Worlds. There's actually there's a hidden Red Bull bounty of Red Bull teams that have been sponsored, right?
Yeah, that's it.
So they're incentivized to help each other.
Yamato, I cut you off. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
No, I want to say we did find out that T1 won the coin toss and they chose blue side. But I feel like this could be a series where red side could prove more powerful. Because I do think that Genji, in terms of the prep work, just didn't make sense. They're banning Kalista Xayah to give away Ashe. But I think if there's a world where you give enemy Yone and you get Ashe Skarner, I think that you're very, very happy in a series like this. And I think there's enough strong picks now in my mind where you can think to yourself the 1-2s can be super powerful because we know the Ashe, we know the Skarner that somehow just, I don't know, there's just game 3, Genji T1, it's fucking Seafood Thursday, no Skarner on the Rift. Like, I don't know what the fuck happened in that game. Just a fucking anomaly where Nocturne got locked in. It's like Skarner won. We won with Skarner Jax Ari the previous game. Let's just pick Nocturne.
And it looked good in the first game. Like the Skarner looked good in the first game. Yeah. They didn't lose because of the Skarner, and then they just ended up going Nocturne Ari. I'm like, did they want to lose or what?
It's like as you guys mentioned, it's like they banned Kalista Xayah. What if like Renata has moved and then we need to see different blind picks? And then all of a sudden, in my mind, I still think if Korea can pick after, I think he's far more dangerous. It just happened in this series. They're picking Ashe Renata and Lehens is 5 picking Rel. Like, come on. That's your 5 pick, Lehens. At that point, it looked like, oh, Lehens, you're kind of performing like shit. Let's just pick your most plate. Fucking run with it, That's like his comfort zone. Like he would pick Renata into Rel. That's so confusing.
I feel like we've ran down everywhere except the AD carry role, right? I mean, we how do we feel about the pools of these two players that I feel like are coming in contrasting forms?
In the same way that Pays probably has the more appropriate champion pool for this tournament. You can say the exact same thing about Elk. Like Elk is just going to be more comfortable on Ziggs, Ezreal, Kai'Sa, and Guma. When the pool is pinched, starts going to Caitlyn. You can't let this team have Ashe. Like the biggest confusing thing for me is that Genji should know that T1 is not allowed to have Ashe. T1 is never allowed to have Ashe because they can flex it. It's too fucking annoying. It's way too fucking annoying to let T1 have this Ashe, and it also helps empower all of their pick compositions. So I was perplexed by this decision.
Game 1 Renekton 1-2, you love that one from Genji?
Dude, look, Yamato, I was on the copium and I was like, is this a mid Renekton flex from Chovy, the bruiser god? Is he trying to play it into the Yone matchup? I was like, this is the spice I need in game 1. No, it was just top Renekton. Great.
I mean, Renekton was like, I feel like Renekton was pretty powerful in that game. they just fucking griefed multiple times. I mean, it should be good to be playing Renekton into a game where they have they have Gragas, plus they have Yone, plus they have a Vi. Like that should be a.
I just think they could have gotten. I didn't mind the Renek just giving the Ashe over because I was like when the costume was on, I was like, yo, they're training Yone.
I thought for sure it was Skarner Ashe. I thought it was for sure
Yeah.
Skarner Ashe. I was like, oh, okay, so we banned the Xayah because we're definitely going to take the Ashe because clearly they should. The first thing they should not be allowed to have is Ashe. So that's you banned it so that you would get either Yone or Ashe, right? You're forcing the decision. That's what was frustrating. Was like I feel that the priority there was. And like I think they also were trying to make sure that the Yone wasn't flexed into the top lane by like showing the Renekton early. My point is I thought it was something more clever than it ended up being. Like I thought there was some shenanigans, like spicy shenanigans afoot, but there were not. And I think like you should look at the T1 match. You should look at the entire history of T1 for the last 2 years and their Ashe use and just be like, no, we're not going to play into this, right? So I think that's what. When you look at the bot lane, like the biggest overlap is probably the Varus pick, which is a little bit interesting, right?
Yeah, both Ashe for sure. Yeah.
I was about to say we're running out of bans to ban out Faker. If we gotta decide what we're doing with Renata, decide what we're doing with Ashe, that leaves one ban in mid and a takeaway. You know, like we're running out. You got to get rid of, Aurora.
I'm thinking give Yone, bro. I'm thinking that's where I'm at. I'm thinking give Yone, ban the other shit. Like ban Renata, Gragas, give Yone, take Ashe Skarner, and play your Akali. I don't like the Smolder so much because it just doesn't feel billy to me.
It's not a night champion.
Yeah. It just didn't like their best games were when they're like, yo, we have Rakan, Wukong, fucking Kindred, Galio, just buttons, I love them with buttons, they just give them buttons. Like the B and Billy, like it's fucking buttons,
just
like the
BLG press the buttons.
Yeah. And that's why I'm saying thank God Genji didn't make the final because we have two teams that like buttons and that makes for fucking fireworks, bro.
But my concern with BLG has been like clearly they've snapped back from their early world's woes, but even in some of these games, and like I understand that sometimes this is just the way that inter-regional matchups work, and it was an LPL, so L versus LPL team, so sometimes shit gets weird. But I'm sitting here and I'm not gonna say I was loving it because it was an incredibly boring like start first 15-20 minutes to the BLG versus Weibo series, but BLG, I'm like, ooh, all right, we're gonna play super reserve. We're gonna give up the objectives when we need to, and then they just fight unnecessary dragon fights. I'm like, what is happening right now? How could they be so disciplined for like 20 minutes and then just completely fucking lose their marbles?
They just thought that they were strong enough at that fight because Smolder was about to hit 225.
He was about to hit 225, but I mean, he hits it like after the fight. They're like the dragon fight goes on so long, like they have no mana anymore that he still hasn't hit 225. Until they're basically forced to retreat. The point is that you don't have to take that fight ever, right? And you have to have the discipline to know, okay, maybe you start it and you're like, ooh, things are going well. Smolder's at 225. But you also have to have the discipline to like know when the tipping point to call that off is.
I mean, yeah, I feel like this is like what happened to almost every team that I thought was good at dragon fights this entire tournament. Like all the teams that are good at controlling dragons, like for example, Hanwha Life, Gen G, it just feels like they just end up fighting so much more often than you expect. Like when I watch Gen G games that they win, I'm looking at the game. It's like 22 minutes. They have like a 500 gold lead, and the score is like 1-0. Like, and I'm like, yep, this is a Gen G game.
And that's what we got 43 wins of, or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, they would just choke other teams out. Like they would just make the game as boring as possible. Enemy team would fall asleep, and then they would win. I mean, you saw it. Like game 2 was a very Gen G game.
Game 5 versus Flyers.
By the way, I want to get your guys' take on this. I thought that the level 1 that Gen G executed in game 2 was fucking great. And like the advantages they got from that, I was like, holy shit, are they just going to snowball an entire game off of level 1? And they did.
Wow. I love that shit because it's like they showed the Jackson bot, right? In the lane
those
swap.
ward placements were so good.
Caitlyn just went top, and then they got completely screwed because they got the best case scenario with the swap, where you have your weak lane on the weak turret, which is like super aced up, and then just the evolution coming into game 3, where everyone is just hiding in fog and playing the fog game, because like Ash Renato was just chilling there, and then Ezreal decided to like walk down the lane, and he's like, oh fuck, I'm missing 3 melees, and then it was like the other side of it. It was a fucking beautiful.
It was
scene.
great. Yeah, but like I was fucking loving it because those wards were so good from Gen.G and the level 1 planning, and they were just making T1 dizzy on the map, and then Caitlyn's late for lane, and then Caitlyn crashes the wave late, and that means like Keen's like getting all the XP and gold in the top side. I was like, holy shit! Like they actually just like slammed T1 in this level 1.
When I looked at what happened, I felt like Guma didn't know if he actually even wanted to crash the wave when he got to the lane, because when he got to the lane, it was like a really weird creep split where the lane was actually freezing to Guma. Like the minions froze towards Guma, which normally like doesn't happen, or like it won't happen to that degree, where it's like what the fuck, should I just freeze the lane here, or do I need to push? And then I think he saw what was happening bot side. Once they like started dying bot, he's like, fuck, I guess I just do have to push. Let me just start pushing. Fuck it.
Yeah, it was just a really weird like early game state, and I think Gen.G that was like the best iteration of Gen.G. When I watched that, I was like, oh, so like good Gen.G's back now, but they weren't.
They were not.
Yep. I mean, game 1, outside of the thing that I thought was really good for Gen.G, and maybe one of the weaknesses of T1 is their lane swaps have not been that great. Like they had pretty good ones they had a pretty good one versus top esports at the beginning of the tournament. But the lane swap that they had in game 1, I feel like Zeus is just dead under that turret. Like he just has to die, TP back, and that's just it. They can't dive top. When you have Ash, Renata, Vi, it's very hard to dive Renekton. Like you don't have the buttons and like somebody to tank the turret. When you have that Skarner, Leona, Ziggs on bot, like that Gragas is just fucking dead. Like Gragas is very hard to outplay that situation. And Skarner, like, you know, Lehen's had the pretty bad like Q into, he misses his E. Then Skarner can just wait out his passive. Instead, he walks into the turret, takes 2 turret shots. He has to flash away, and it just like ruins the situation. But overall, I think that is like a bad lane swap for a T1. If they end up in that situation, I think it could be a disaster, just the same way it was in game 2.
Agreed, yeah. And to follow up as well, as like Gen.G, the lane swaps in, like in the Flacos cities, like Flacos got such big advantages of the lane swaps, right? There was like the Ash fucking walking to a frozen lane, she was level 2 against 4, and there was like the Galio being full level ahead. It was completely atrocious. But I think on the other side, T1 has been super good in lane swaps, in my opinion, like knowing all the variants, and I think that it seems like this is something that they really like crammed and really got down to the point, because I don't see like Bilibili as a crazy good lane swap team. So maybe that's an additional way to get an edge if it comes down to it.
We know that T1 has selected the blue side. We've talked about all these different ways that you can go with the bans. What are your 1, 2, 3s for both teams? What do you want to see BLG and T1 do with their 1, 2, 3s here, if this was the strategy coming on in?
I think red side will probably keep the Aurora ban. Maybe you get like Aurora Renata on red side. I think BLG on blue side probably ban Rakan. Maybe probably ban Jax as well. Maybe you go like Renata, Aurora, Gragas on red side for BLG, and then on blue side it's something like you just ban like Rakan plus Jax. First pick Skarner, or you trade Skarner for Yone, this type of stuff.
Yeah, but the question is like, if that's the case, then T1, let's just say they run the same prior list that they had against Gen.G, so they first pick Yone. Then do you think BLG just actually does go ahead and take Skarner Ash?
Yeah, I think they take Skarner Ash for it, and they play the game out normally like that. I mean, I guess the angle that T1 doesn't seem to care too much about is like the early game, like the Sejuani Rumble, which is what we saw BLG do, where they first pick the Yone and they follow that up, just instant Sejuani Rumble, and it's like, boom, there's your team comp. You can slot in like pretty much any AD carry, any engage support into that, and then you have that. But if they don't want to go that early, if they want to, you know, pick some of like, if they want to pick like a Carrier champion or something, then we'll see how it goes from there. I feel like Carrier, he's been taking the Renata really early. If Renata's banned, maybe he just goes 4-5, but I think you have to worry about like, if he goes 4-5 and you just ban out like his weird picks that are good for, because you always know which weird pick is good for the game. Is this like a Bard game, or is it like a Kalista Nico game, or is it like a potential Pike? Like you'll know which like weird pick is kind of good by that point. I mean, Carry also plays the Poppy pretty well. We haven't seen it yet, but he plays it pretty well. then will you get limited, because I feel like the loss angle for T1 is when they pick something like the Braum for Keria, or if they pick something, you know, like a Rel or a Leona or something. That is when you see T1 look the most vulnerable.
Yeah, you want him.
Braum.
You don't. Yeah, well, you don't want him on Braum. You want him on a.
You don't want him on
not
Alistar.
Braum.
You don't want him on Braum. You don't really want him on Rel. Like people will look at like the fact that he's played good games, but you're comparing it to like what he looks like in the niche picks that are good for the game. When a niche pick is good for the game, then he just completely 1v9s.
And in my mind, right, it's like looking at how T1 should approach blue side. I just hope. I wonder what kind of scenarios they can roll that out in, but they are practically like using the Yone to partially bait it into being played topside. But all of the champions that are being blinded top are very hard matchups. Like removing Jax and then going 4-5, maybe removing Renekton, maybe something comes through. But I feel like Billy is going to be aware enough, because I think even the K'Sante matchup is not easy for Yone top. I think that the Yone first pick, for it to be picked mid, I think there's a world where maybe the priorities will change. Like I could see maybe Ashe being prioritized over Yone, because I don't think necessarily this is like Knight's biggest strength. And also on the flip side, it's like Ahri and Akali are things that he's shown. So there could be a world where priors change, because I do think if T1 roll out the game one and they first pick Yone and enemy get two strong picks, like we mentioned the Ashe Kana as an example, I think the Ashe Kana is favored in those spots. And
especially with these teams, like neither T1 nor BLG would be the most like Yone oriented team, right?
Yeah. I mean,
it does feel like part of the Yone is a Chovy denial pick, right? Whereas that I think you're less. It's not that Yone isn't super strong, but I think you're less concerned about Knight playing it. And you're probably more concerned, like you say, about the Ashe and Skarner going over. I think the Ashe is just so critical to T1's compositions, because it enables, it gives them non-committal engage, and it gives them pick possibilities from the AD carry position. And you can get that with a Varus too, but Ashe obviously controls vision way better with Hawkshot, and you have the global ability to engage. So it's too good.
So just to add my theory of how I think
and
T1 could approach it. It's
so
like,
anyway.
I could see a world where they end up banning Yone on blue side. Like if they ban like Skarner, Jax, Yone on blue side, just to have space, right? Just to have space to first pick the Ashe, or just remove the pool and make sure that it's 1 against 0. I think that could be like an approach. Maybe they leave Jax open because they have the Gragas, but I think like either you target the Rakan to remove on from comfort, but then again, it's like Rakan, you like to play range champions into it, so maybe there's room to play around with there, because they do have answers into the champions that Billy really like in Rakan and Jax.
All right, well, we've been all up and down this one, as well as everything that has happened here at Worlds, plus the LCK and LEC formats. All that's left to do is predictions. Who you got? Let's go, Monty.
3-1 T1.
3-1 T1. The cowards vote. Yamato.
Wow, you can't just drop that on me.
What do you mean?
What is
Yes,
that
it is. That's what it's called. Go 3-0 or 3-2, Yamato.
I feel like 3-2 is the coward's vote, but whatever.
No.
I do think it's very, very close, and I do think
You
there's
always fucking
dynamics.
say this. Give me a point. Give me your score.
You want me to just shut up and give a score?
Yeah.
Like in this moment in time, I don't know how I feel tomorrow, but in this moment in time, I am like 51-49 T1. I think it's insanely close. I think everything matters on the day. But my main concern for Billy is that On just hasn't been good at this tournament.
Yeah,
that scares the shit out of me. You know,
well.
That scares the shit out of me. But if he has a good series and they figure out like the dynamics around Renata and Knight actually perceives Faker for the play that he is in this tournament, and they roll that out, I think that there is opportunities to beat T1 because their patterns are really good. But if the layer of the onion post Renata ban is something strong, blindable, then maybe T1 just fucking sweep, because they seem to be in a very, very good zone with how Keria is playing.
Chat and commenters, pause the video if you haven't already and put your prediction in the comments right now. Chat, you better just put it in right now. That's right. Stop talking about angry dGon. It's like 2 a.m. We've been doing this for 3 hours. Dom, go ahead. What you got?
3-2 BLG. They bring it back. We get
Nice.
the good ending. We get the good ending for once.
Dude, I'm here for Knight's First Worlds. I think that sounds great.
I just imagine what the world will be living in if T1 ends up winning. Imagine what the world will be living in is going to be like for the whole next year. Like no matter what. Like throughout the whole year, it's like, well, T1 always wins anyway, so it doesn't even matter. Like it's just gonna be a whole...
you can't let the troglodyte fans win. This is like one of those things. The trogs, man. You can't let the trogs win.
We just need the good ending, bro. We need the good ending.
It's like the future if you know, BLG wins. It's just the beautiful futuristic city with glass skyscrapers and robots, you know, serving you fine food. And then the future, if T1 wins, is just a bunch of cavemen in T1 jerseys just beating you to death with stone clubs.
Zug zug, baby.
Oh my god, it's just the discussions just become so much worse every single. I mean, just think about the Chovy discussion that we've already had, bro. Like, imagine what it becomes if T1 ends up winning. I mean, I had BLG as the favorites before the tournament. Like that's who I like in my personal predictions. Like the ones where I was like, oh, I think T1 will actually be good. I did my analysis where I'm like, T1 shouldn't be good because they are the fourth seed, but I think that they're always just mysteriously good. Yeah, I just thought that I just had a feeling they'd be good, and that ended up being true. And I had thought BLG would be the best team in the world, like kind of like Yamato said, like on this patch and. Just with how they had been playing, it felt like they really upped their game. And it feels like they're good at clutching out situations and series that are close when they're playing with even footing. But like, I can't even remember, like, is there any series that I've seen them lose this entire year where it didn't feel like they were outclassed? I mean, the only series they lost the entire year have been to Gen G, right? Like, and I guess like some best of threes or something. And like in those series, it just felt like Gen G was just playing with like more information. Like they just understood the 2v1s better. They understood like the meta better. They had more champions that they could play. And I feel like every time that BLG's been in these close situations, like they were against T1 at MSI, they've ended up coming out on top. So I trust BLG to get it done, to just clutch it out. They're one of the only teams that can out clutch T1.
And just to add, guys, I put money on Bilibili winning Worlds, so I'm riding that to the end. I'm just saying right now, I'm in the, like I'm separating two aspects. I'm separating two aspects because I was very early to say that Bilibili is my favorite, but in this moment, I'm slightly T1. Slightly. Maybe tomorrow I feel different. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe the money means more tomorrow than it does tonight.
Yeah, but my prediction doesn't have any betting on the series. I don't think the T1 players sitting there. Fucking hell, I'm gonna play better now.
Yeah, I just needed Yamato to not believe in me. All right, well, there you have it, y'all. We've dissected everything. You know that you'll catch Dom on his co-stream, one of the few co-streamers, as well as Yamato. You can get that on you can check that out during the finals. I will be at the LCK viewing party, which also is being live streamed, where we have a limit of 1 beer. But they didn't talk about what we're gonna have beforehand.
Do you think I'm banned from that, dGon? Do you think I'm banned?
I don't think you're invited, but I don't know if you're banned. That's a good answer.
That's a good answer.
All right. Well, you guys know where you can find us during Worlds now. Make sure that you like and subscribe to Last Free Nation. Again, as much as the League of Legends calendar is winding down, the Counter-Strike Major is going up. We've got multiple different titles also happening. The Culture channel is popping off as well, so make sure to check out all of those things. We appreciate you so much for doing that already. Thanks to our partners in crime for this episode, Into the AM. Make sure to check out their website, www.intotheam.com/LFN, to get 50% off plus 10% more and free shipping on all the goods, and supporting your boys here on the channel, as well as getting the fresh clothes. It has been a hell of a season. We got one more great match ahead of us. Hopefully it'll be great. You know, but I'm sure it'll be either way. Knight,
it'll be 3-0-2-1, you know,
getting it over and over the hump.
That would be the horror ending. That would be like the worst end. That would be just impossible. Imagine like then next year, if they win 3-0 in the quarterfinals, it'll be like that's the pathing. They always go 3-0, 3-1, 3-0. That's what they did the last 2 years. Now we're getting 3-0, 3-1, 3-0. Like, nah, bro, it'll be I'm ceiling fan, bro. That's all. Like it's just like it's just ceiling fan. That's it.
You're just gonna look forward to Dom's feet stream finally, is what you're saying.
Feet stream. There it is.
Now I already did a foot reveal with Yamato. Yamato has been impressed by the length of my feet.
He has long feet, guys. The longest feet I ever broke. Crazy long feet.
I don't know, bro.
They look like feet of condors, bro. Like this is long, bro.
I just have long, skinny feet. This is how that got a unique build.
I needed to let that one run for a little bit just because the T1 fans were mad that I didn't change the topic earlier when we were bashing on him. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week after we crown ourselves the 2024 champion.